Chapter 589. Star Continent. East Divine Continent, True Xian Region, Qingyun Region. In the past, a king from the Middle Heaven continent came to the Luoxing Kingdom. Lord Gao Han of the Duan clan, the patriarch of the Duan clan, a 3-star king, had come to the East Divine Continent under the orders of the Great Yuan Dynasty's supreme king, Meng Tai, to exterminate Yixing's entire clan. The East Divine Continent was the territory of the Dark Star sect. In order to avoid provoking the experts of the Dark Star sect, the Supreme King Meng Tai had specially dispatched the 3rd-level Star Sea Realm Duan Gaohan. From this, one could see the fury in his heart. His desire to exterminate Yixing's entire clan was extremely intense. The Supreme King Meng Tai was the only 4-star King Realm warrior in the Starland. 3-star King Realm warriors had an extremely high status in the Great Yuan Dynasty, and there were no more than 5 of them. The Supreme King, Meng Tai, was determined to kill Yixing's entire clan by sending Monarch Gaohan here. Duan Gaohan, why did you come all the way from the Central Sky Continent to a remote place like the East Divine Continent? Just as Monarch Alpine arrived at the Luoxing Kingdom, a voice suddenly resounded as a person blocked his path. This man was bare-chested and muscular. His black hair reached his shoulders. He was none other than the left emissary of the Dark Star sect, Black Biao King. The High Frost King's expression changed. He was a 3-star king, but someone had approached him without him noticing. If it were not for the Black Tiger King, he would not have known about the latter's existence. What does it have to do with you? Your Dark Star sect shouldn't meddle in other people's business. The High Frost King glanced indifferently at the Black Tiger King and said, "To be able to trouble a 3-star king like you to come to Yixing's birthplace, it seems like the Great Yuan Dynasty already knows about his identity as the Demon Star of Troubled Times. Meng Tai actually sent you here. He really attaches great importance to this matter." The Black Biao King said as he looked at the Alpine King like a tiger staring at its prey. The Supreme King had long predicted that your Dark Star Church would interfere. That's why he sent me here to exterminate Yixing's entire family. With me, the High Frost King, taking action, your Dark Star Church won't be able to stop me. Lord Gaohan said coldly. As a 3-star king and one of the top experts of the Great Yuan Dynasty, he was not afraid of the Black Tiger King. Can't. Go back and tell Meng Tai that from today onwards, the East Divine Continent is the territory of my Dark Star sect. No one from the Great Yuan Dynasty is allowed to set foot in it. Even Meng Tai is no exception. The Black Tiger King said indifferently, "What does your Dark Star sect amount to? Even my Duan royal clan can compare to it. Do you think you're qualified to fight against the Great Yuan Dynasty? Today, this king will exterminate all 9 generations of Yixing's family. Let's see if you can stop me." Lord Algan roared furiously. He extended his palm and slapped at Black Tiger King. As soon as the Alpine King made his move, the water yuan qi in the world was controlled by him and condensed into ice. It transformed into a huge icy hand that blotted out the sky and grabbed at the Black Tiger King. The Black Biao King stood there without moving, but a fierce wind suddenly blew in all directions. The wind was like a blade, spinning non-stop, forming a huge vortex with his body as the center. When the giant ice hand was still 100 meters away from the Black Biao King, it was sliced apart by the wind blade vortex and began to shatter. In the end, the giant ice hand did not even touch the Black Biao King's body. It barely managed to stretch out 10 meters before it was completely blown into ice shards by the wind blades. Your wind momentum has actually reached such a level. Lord Algan's expression changed as he cried out in surprise. The wind blade vortex formed by the wind momentum alone was able to break through Lord Algan's icy stellar wind and the ice momentum, as well as the water yuan qi formed the giant ice hand. It was clear that the Black Biao King's comprehension of the wind momentum was much higher than Lord Algan's comprehension of the ice momentum. One sword seals 14 states. A mystic weapon sword appeared in Monarch Gaohan's hand as he executed a mystic high-grade sword technique. The Middle Sky Continent was divided into 14 states. This sword technique meant to seal the world in ice with one sword. It was the strongest sword technique. With the dark weapon in hand, Lord Algan's strength multiplied. His icy chi became even stronger, turning everything within 10 miles into ice. Whoosh! When Lord Algan attacked with his sword, he used his astrology. An extreme-grade ice star hung high in the sky, adding to the icy chi. A 3-star king attacked with his full strength. As soon as the sword light appeared, countless icy swords appeared and slashed in all directions, covering a radius of 10 miles. Wherever the sword energy passed, a huge crack would appear on the ground. Then, it would turn into an icy canyon. You still dare to attack when you know that my wind momentum is close to perfection. The Black Biao King shouted coldly as his figure disappeared like the wind. Lord Algan's strongest attack missed. It did not even touch the corner of the Black Biao King's clothes. Don't run if you have the guts. Lord Algan shouted coldly as he attacked the Black Biao King with another ultimate sword technique. The swords flashed like meteors as they shot out more than 10 miles and arrived in front of the Black Biao King. You overestimate yourself. The Black Biao King waved his hand, and a dark palm print shot out. It instantly turned into a dark wall that blocked the attack. The dark astral force in the void was instantly drawn by the Black Biao King, forming a dark wall that was even sturdier than an iron wall. Clang! The swords hit the dark wall with a crisp sound of metal clashing. However, the dark wall did not move at all. There was no damage at all. How is this possible? Lord Algan was shocked. He knew how powerful his attack was. It could not even break the Black Biao King's dark wall. This meant that there was a huge gap between their strength. Lord Algan was shocked. He immediately retracted his sword and retreated. However, it was too late. A dark palm print shot out from the dark wall and slapped at Lord Algan. The speed of the dark palm print was so fast that Lord Algan could not dodge it at all. Bang! Lord Algan was hit by the dark palm print, and his body was sent flying more than 10 miles like a cannonball. Lord Algan's protective ice shattered instantly. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in the air. He was heavily injured by the Black Biao King's attack. Lord Algan used the force of the Black Biao King's attack to retreat quickly. A pair of mystic wings appeared on his back as he moved like a stream of light. Black Biao, the Supreme King will fight you personally. Lord Algan's voice came from afar. The Black Biao King stood in the air and looked at Lord Algan's retreating figure. He did not chase after him. Although he wasn't afraid of the Deyuan Supreme King, the Dark Star Church was still inferior in terms of overall strength. Most importantly, the Dark Star Church wasn't completely united at the moment. He didn't want to start a decisive battle with the Dark Star Church at this time, so he didn't pursue the High Frost King. The Black Biao King's hope was on Yi Xing. Only when Yi Xing fully matured would it be time for the final battle with the Deyuan dynasty. Extraterritorial Star Zone. A smile appeared on Yi Xing's face as he looked at the flame on his fingertip. It was a real cluster of flames. It was not a flame formed by combining the power of fire with the astral energy. It meant that he had activated the fire Yuan Qi. A venerable 9-star who could activate the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth and communicate with the power of heaven and earth was a half-step venerable one. Chapter 590. Yi Xing's fire, wind, and darkness grand forces of heaven and earth had all reached the Great Success Realm. He had reached the unity of heaven and earth realm. This was a comprehension that only supremacies could achieve. His comprehension of the grand momentum of heaven and earth had reached the unity of heaven and man. Communicating with the power of heaven and earth was naturally a piece of cake. First, it was the fire elemental energy, then the wind elemental energy, then the darkness elemental energy. Yi Xing quickly activated the 3 types of elemental energy in the universe. Most warriors could only activate one type of heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Only a very small number of warriors could activate 2 types of heaven and earth Yuan Qi. As for martial artists who could trigger 3 kinds of heaven and earth origin Qi, they were even rarer. Yi Xing was able to attract 3 types of heaven and earth origin Qi. This meant that if the amount of heaven and earth origin Qi he attracted was equal, his strength would be 3 times that of other warriors. He would have a great advantage. Of course, It did not mean that a warrior who could only draw upon one type of heaven and earth origin qi would be weaker than a warrior who could draw upon multiple types of heaven and earth origin qi. The control of heaven and earth yuan qi was closely related to a warrior's cultivation and understanding of the heaven and earth's power. If one could draw upon enough heaven and earth yuan qi, even if it was only one kind of heaven and earth yuan qi, it would be able to display great power. There was a saying in martial arts that the most important thing was the quality, not the quantity. The same principle applied to the activation of heaven and earth yuan qi. Yi Xing raised his hand and the profound weapon, golden rock spear, appeared in his hand. A half-step venerable realm expert could barely activate the power of a dark weapon by using the qi of heaven and earth. Yi Xing's three worldly forces were all in the unity of heaven and man state, which was equivalent to a supremacy. Even if his cultivation was not as high as a supremacy's, the amount of worldly qi that he could draw upon was not inferior to a supremacy's. Therefore, Yi Xing had enough strength to unleash the power of the golden rock spear. With the golden rock spear in his hand, Yi Xing could clearly feel the power contained within the golden rock spear. If I had my current strength in the battle for Providence in the Starry Sky Arena, I wouldn't have needed to use all my trump cards to kill Meng Yuanjun. One spear strike would have been enough to kill him. Yi Xing thought to himself. His current strength had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to when he was in the 8th level of the astral realm. The unity of heaven and man could only unleash its full power when the heaven and earth yuan qi was activated. Yi Xing was much more powerful than other half-step venerables after becoming a half-step venerable. Ordinary venerables could not be compared to him. The voice in the formation said that I have entered a mid-level extraterritorial starland and that I will be going on an adventure with the young geniuses of the starry crescent land. I have been here for a month and I have been staying in this cavern. I don't know what this mid-level extraterritorial starland is like. Yi Xing put away the golden rock spear, glanced at the exit of the hall, and strode towards it. The exit was a long and winding cave. Yi Xing walked for over 10 miles before he finally walked out of the cave. The entrance to the cave was covered with green vines. If one didn't push aside the green vines, they wouldn't be able to see the cave entrance behind them. The cave was located at the foot of a mountain. Outside the cave was a dense forest. The dense canopy blocked the light and the forest was a little dark. This darkness was nothing to Yi Xing. His eyesight was strong and he could see very far. After carefully observing the forest, he couldn't even differentiate between north, south, east, and west. He could only choose a direction and walk in it. This forest was extremely vast. Yi Xing climbed over one mountain after another and walked through one valley after another. There were towering trees everywhere. Even when Yi Xing climbed to the top of the mountain and looked into the distance, he could only see the boundless forest. He couldn't see the end of the forest at all. Yi Xing chose a direction and kept moving forward. No matter how big the forest was, there must be an end. If he kept moving forward in one direction, he would walk out of the forest sooner or later. In this unfamiliar environment, Yi Xing didn't dare to fly in the sky to avoid danger. He kept walking through the forest. He walked for 2 days and 2 nights. On the 3rd day, although he still hadn't walked out of the forest, he finally met another warrior. To be more precise, he was stopped by another warrior. There were a total of 3 warriors blocking Yi Xing's path. They all looked very young, about 18 or 19 years old. They were all less than 20 years old and had already stepped into the astral realm, prolonging their lifespan. Their cultivation auras leaked out. 2 of them were half-step venerables, and the other had already stepped into the astral reaching realm. He was a 1-star venerable. Yi Xing guessed that since they came to the extraterritorial star continent from the star continent's starry sky arena and were less than 25 years old, then the warriors from other continents should be the same. Therefore, these 3 should be younger generation geniuses who were less than 25 years old. In the star continent, the highest cultivation among the younger generation geniuses under 25 years old was only at the 9th level of the astral realm. Yi Xing had only broken through after coming to the extraterritorial star continent. Because his comprehension of the worldly momentum had reached the realm of one with the world, he was able to quickly draw the yuan qi of heaven and earth and become a half-step venerable. And of the 3 people in front of him, 2 were half-step venerables, and 1 was even a true venerable who had passed through the thunder calamity. Yi Xing couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The younger generation geniuses of a mid-level continent were indeed not comparable to the younger generation geniuses of a low-level continent like the Star Continent. Yi Xing looked at the 3 young warriors who had suddenly blocked his path. He cupped his fists and bowed, saying, "Brothers, may I ask how to get out of this forest?" The 3 didn't answer, but their gazes were firmly fixed on Yi Xing. Yi Xing waited impatiently. Just as he was about to ask again, the 1-star venerable in the middle finally spoke. "I have never seen you before. You are not from the 7 great sects." The 1-star venerable said word by word, looking a little puzzled. Only the 7 great sects of the starry crescent land were qualified to send people into the extraterritorial star continent. Before entering, the younger generation geniuses of the 7 great sects had met each other. Yi Xing didn't belong to any of the 7 great sections. Zuoqiushan looked at Yi Xing for a while and compared him with the younger generation geniuses of the 7 great sects who had entered the extraterritorial star continent. He was sure that the person in front of him didn't belong to any of the 7 great sections. After Zuoqiushan finished speaking, the half-step venerable on his left said, "Senior brother Zua, could he be a disciple of the Big Dipper Sword sect in disguise?" Zuoqiushan nodded at the person who spoke and said, "Who cares if he is a disciple of the Big Dipper Sword sect in disguise? Let's capture him and slowly interrogate him." Qingjin Lungman. After saying that, Zuoqiushan glanced at Yi Xing. His meaning was obvious. Cheng Jin and Leng Man, the 2 half-step venerables, looked at Yi Xing with their eyes lit up. Their auras suddenly burst out. Yi Xing frowned and said, "I don't know you and we don't interfere in each other's business. Why do you want to capture me?" Cheng Jin and Leng Man chuckled and didn't answer Yi Xing. Instead, they attacked Yi Xing at the same time. Chapter 591. Although they were half-step venerables, Cheng Jin and Leng Man both had dark weapons. Cheng Jin's dark weapon was a sledgehammer, while Leng Man's was a long saber. Both of them used their astrology at the same time. Surging astral power poured down from the extreme astrology. Both of them unleashed their full strength without showing any mercy. Cheng Jin's dark weapon sledgehammer was like a mountain pressing down. Just the pressure from the air was no less than a full blow from Venerable 9-star. Leng Man's long saber was extremely fast. Before the sledgehammer fell on his head, the long saber was already at his waist. If Yi Xing dodged the attack of the profound weapon saber, then the profound weapon sledgehammer in the sky would immediately change direction. Wherever Yi Xing dodged, the sledgehammer would attack. If Yi Xing did not dodge, not only would he have to face the long saber's attack, but he would also have to face the sledgehammer's attack. Apparently, the 2 of them often fought at the same time. They cooperated very well. Moreover, both of them were very powerful. They were much more powerful than ordinary half-step venerables. They were definitely not below Meng Yuanjin. If they worked together, they could definitely compete with ordinary venerables. At least, a 1-star venerable would be flustered if he encountered Yi Xing's current situation. It would be difficult for him to deal with the 2's joint attack. Yi Xing didn't dodge the joint attack of the 2 of them. Instead, he stood as still as a mountain. A terrifying aura burst out. There was even a flame burning outside Yi Xing's body. The golden rock spear appeared in his hand. He stomped the spear on the ground beside him. Yi Xing held the golden rock spear with the spear on the ground. His aura was like an unshakable mountain. Clang. At this moment, the dark weapon's long saber arrived. Because it was blocked by the golden rock spear, the saber slashed on the spear. Sparks flew in the air. Leng Man's saber was so powerful that even a 1-star venerable had to dodge it. However, Yi Xing stomped on the ground with the spear. He was as still as a mountain. The saber did not shake Yi Xing's figure. Hit! A loud shout came from the sky. Yi Xing had blocked Leng Man's blade, but he was immediately struck by the Xian weapon's sledgehammer. Yi Xing did not panic. He suddenly raised his other hand and waved it above his head. In an instant, a violent wind blew, forming a hurricane vortex that was pulled to the side. This was the result of Yi Xing circulating the wind power of the state of one with the world to the limit. The wind power he drew upon formed a hurricane whirlpool. It was extremely powerful. When the profound weapon sledgehammer fell into the whirlpool, it was immediately pulled to the side and smashed towards Lung Man's head. Lung Man was about to attack Yi Xing a second time with the dark weapon long saber in his hand. Suddenly, a huge hammer pressed down on him. His expression turned into one of shock as he exclaimed, "Senior Martial Brother Cheng?" Lung Man instantly withdrew his saber and slashed upwards. When Cheng Jin saw that the hammer in his hand did not hit Yi Xing and instead smashed towards Lung Man's head, he was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his strength. Bang! When the dark weapon long saber and the dark weapon sledgehammer collided, there was a loud explosion and sparks flew everywhere. The dark weapon long saber buzzed from the impact. Lung Man's chi and blood were in turmoil and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. How could his hurried saber be compared to the strength of Cheng Jin's hammer? If Cheng Jin had not withdrawn his strength, this hammer would have seriously injured him. "Get lost!" At this moment, Yi Xing shouted coldly and the golden rock spear in his hands swept out horizontally. Cheng Jin and Lung Man had hurriedly withdrawn their strength because of the exchange of blows. At this moment, when faced with Yi Xing's sudden attack, how could they be fully prepared? The two of them barely managed to put their dark weapons in front of them and were hit by the golden rock spear. The golden rock spear whipped past the dark weapon long saber and the dark weapon sledgehammer, creating a line of sparks. The terrifying power ruthlessly passed through the two dark weapons. Swoosh, swoosh. Cheng Jin and Lung Man's bodies shook as they were pushed back by the power of the spear. In the air, the two of them spat out a mouthful of blood. The two of them were indeed powerful and were not inferior to Meng Yuanjun. However, for the current Yi Xing, they could not withstand a single blow. Cheng Jin and Lung Man flew back for a few miles before they could stabilize their bodies. They landed on the ground and looked at Yi Xing, their eyes filled with shock and fear. Their strength was already outstanding among the half-step honorables and they could defeat ordinary half-step honorables. When the two of them joined forces, they were comparable to an ordinary one-star honorable. However, they were defeated by a half-step honorable of the same level. This shocked the two of them. Even among the 7 major sects of the Starry Crescent Land, geniuses with such combat strength were rare. Yi Xing did not chase after Cheng Jin and Lung Man. Instead, he looked at the one-star honorables Wuxia. When Cheng Jin and Lung Man were defeated, Wuxia exploded with a terrifying aura. His aura locked onto Yi Xing. If Yi Xing continued to attack Cheng Jin and Lung Man, he would have to face a terrifying attack from Wuxia. Wuxia's aura was extremely frightening. It was far from being comparable to an ordinary one-star honorable. Even if Yi Xing was confident in his strength and was not inferior to an ordinary honorable, he was still very wary of Wuxia. Wuxia's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Yi Xing's feeling was right. Wuxia was a genius disciple of the Celestial Palace. Even if he had become an astral-reaching honorable, he still had the strength to challenge those with a higher level. Moreover, Wuxia was not only qualified to challenge those with a higher cultivation base, but he could also defeat those with a higher cultivation base. An ordinary 2-star honorable would not be able to last more than 10 moves in front of Wuxia. Wuxia stared at Yi Xing and said, "The Big Dipper Sword sect doesn't have such a powerful half-step honorable." "Who are you?" Yi Xing asked. "And who are you?" Wuxia said, "I'm a disciple of the Celestial Palace, Wuxia." "The same goes for those two. Which sect are you from? Tell me your name. If you have some connection with the Celestial Palace, I'll let you go. If you don't, you'll have to bear the consequences of injuring my disciples." Yi Xing murmured, "Celestial Palace?" Wuxia saw this and was shocked. He shouted, "You don't know about the Celestial Palace? You're not a martial artist from the Starry Crescent Land." This extraterritorial star continent was a mid-level extraterritorial star continent. Under normal circumstances, only the geniuses of the Starry Crescent Land could enter. It had always been controlled by a few of the most powerful forces in the Starry Crescent Land. However, there were exceptions. Whenever there were geniuses from the lower continents near the Starry Crescent Land, there was a chance that they would come here. Although such a situation was rare, it would happen every once in a while. Zhuqiushan's eyes were like knives as he stared at Yixing and said, "Which star continent are you from?" The Starry Crescent Land was only one of the lower continents near the Starry Crescent Land. Zhuqiushan knew that there were a total of 8 lower continents near the Starry Crescent Land. Chapter 592. I'm indeed not a martial artist from Starry Crescent Land. As for which continent I'm from, you don't need to know. Yixing looked at Zhuqiushan cautiously and said, "I just want to leave this forest. We have no grudge against each other. Why do we have to fight to the death?" The corners of Zhuqiushan's mouth curled up. He sneered and said, "Trash from an inferior continent, how dare you lay your hands on the treasures of an intermediate extraterritorial star continent? Here, your existence is a mistake. You should die." Yixing's gaze sharpened as he said coldly, "There's still room for negotiation. I'm new here and don't want to get into trouble. But this doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. If you insist on fighting to the death, the ones who will die may be you." "Is that so? You're the first half-step honorable who dares to speak like this in front of me." A dark weapon halberd suddenly appeared in Zhuqiushan's hand, and his power multiplied. Zhuqiushan pointed the dark weapon halberd at Yixing and yelled coldly, "No half-step martial highness would dare to be so presumptuous in front of me, Zhuqiushan. Moreover, you're just a piece of trash from an inferior continent." Swoosh! Starlight flashed between Yixing's eyebrows as he used the extreme flame astrology. His power increased tremendously. The golden rock spear shone brightly as the tip of the spear pointed at Zhuqiushan. Yixing shouted, "Since you want to fight to the death, bring it on." Yixing had nothing else to say. He was not afraid of a fight. "Then you shall die." Zhuqiushan sneered as the dark weapon halberd in his hand shone with a yellow light. With the power to destroy mountains, he struck down with the halberd. It was a strong earth momentum, and the earth vital chi was extremely dense. When the halberd struck down, it was not inferior to a real mountain. Even an ordinary honorable would be suppressed in an instant. "Get lost!" Yixing yelled. He used the power of fire and fused it with the power of the fire astral form. He stirred up an extremely thick chi of heaven and earth. Yixing's body was covered in flames, and his golden rock spear was completely covered in flames. His physical strength was completely unleashed, and he thrust out his spear with raging flames. The spear shot out like a dragon, like a fire dragon soaring to the heavens. Boom! The spears collided with each other, like a mountain crashing into each other, deafening. Facing this terrifying attack, Yixing did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Like a fire dragon, the flame spear directly rebounded the dark weapon halberd. "Kill!" Yixing took a step forward and shouted loudly. The golden rock spear danced like a fiery dragon as it launched a counterattack at Zhuqiushan. Rumble, 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 rumble. The spear and halberd were both Xian weapons and possessed astonishing power. Every time they collided, there would be a huge tremor and a loud explosion. Terrifying earth energy splattered in all directions. The most frightening thing was the earth and fire yuan qi that spread in all directions. Wherever they passed, the earth cracked, giant trees were snapped, and even a mountain nearby was flattened by the two of them. In less than 10 breaths' time, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 blows. Zhuqiushan was forced to retreat a few hundred meters, and the path was a mess. In the distance, Cheng Jin and Leng Man were dumbfounded. They looked shocked as they watched the two of them fight, and they were in disbelief. They had never seen a half-step honorable with such terrifying strength. Even among the younger generation of the Starry Crescent Land, perhaps only the demonic genius of the Big Dipper Sword sect had such a heaven-defying strength when he was a half-step honorable. However, although they were shocked, they were still confident in Zhuqiushan. After all, Zhuqiushan had not used his astrology. Zhuqiushan was also shocked at the moment, and he felt extremely aggrieved. With his strength, it was easy for him to suppress a half-step honorable, and there was no need for him to use his astrology. He only needed to use less than 10% of his strength. However, he was being forced to retreat by a half-step honorable, and he was actually at a disadvantage. Zhuqiushan was in disbelief, and it was difficult for him to accept the fact. Zhuqiushan wanted to kill Yixing without using his astrology, but it was a pity that he would never be able to fulfill his wish. Yixing was getting stronger as the fight went on, and it was obvious that Zhuqiushan was going to lose. If he did not use his astrology, he would definitely lose to Yixing, and his life would be in danger. When Zhuqiushan retreated 1,000 meters, he finally could not help but use his astrology. A ray of starlight shot into the sky and turned into an earthy yellow star. It was the highest grade of the earth element astrology. You can actually force me to use my astrology. You should be proud of yourself. That Zhuqiushan shouted loudly as he used his astrology, and his strength skyrocketed. His halberd technique was already very powerful, and Yixing could only win by a small margin when he unleashed all of his strength. Now, the tables were completely turned. Boom! Zhuqiushan swung his halberd. Before the halberd's shadow reached him, the void in front of him was compressed by an invisible force, and it became solid. It made Yixing feel like he was shackled, and it was difficult for him to move. Yixing's strength was powerful after all, and the compression of the void could not do anything to him. Yixing activated his astral energy, and the void around him shattered as if it was solid. The golden rock spear stabbed out like a dancing fire dragon and attacked the dark weapon halberd. Boom! The halberd and spear collided, and the sound shook the sky. Yixing's body shook violently, and he immediately took a few steps back. His opponent's strength had multiplied, and it was difficult for him to fight back. Ha-dai! Zhuqiushan had gained the upper hand with his halberd, and he laughed loudly. He used his dark-level martial technique and attacked Yixing with his halberd again. Yixing used his residual shadow step. His residual shadow step had reached the stage of perfection, and with the union of heaven and man's wind momentum, his movement was much faster than an ordinary honorable. His figure split, and he dodged the halberd. Trying to dodge? I've already locked onto your aura. You can't dodge. Zhuqiushan shouted coldly, and waved his dark weapon halberd. It was like a dancing mountain ridge, and in an instant he attacked Yixing again. Astral reaching realm honorable had gone through the thunder calamity, and his body and soul had been reborn. His reaction speed was far beyond astral reaching realm. Once he had locked onto a person's aura, he could clearly sense the location within a certain distance. Now that Zhuqiushan had locked onto Yixing's aura, no matter how fast Yixing's position changed, Zhuqiushan could react immediately. Wind Shadow Spear Art. After Yixing dodged, he immediately counterattacked. He was inferior to his opponent in terms of strength, and could only make up for his disadvantage in terms of speed. Zhuqiushan attacked with his halberd, and Yixing also stabbed out hundreds of spear shadows in the blink of an eye, attacking him. Spiritual martial realm? Child's play. Zhuqiushan's expression was disdainful. He did not withdraw his halberd that was attacking Yixing and shouted, "Mountain body suppression." A horrifying aura exploded. Outside Zhuqiushan's body, the earth yuan qi and the astral wind gathered, condensing into a translucent mountain peak and shrouding Zhuqiushan. Ding 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 ding. Streaks of spear shadows pierced that translucent mountain peak, letting out continuous crisp sounds. Chapter 593. The translucent body of the mountain had a strong defense. It blocked all of Yixing's spear energy. As for the spear energy that was hit by the dark weapon halberd, it shattered instantly. In the blink of an eye, the dark weapon halberd was in front of Yixing and collided with the golden rock spear. Boom! With a loud explosion, Yixing's body was sent flying backward. Zhuqiushan's attack power was indeed terrifying. Even though Yixing's physical strength was strong, he could not control the shock of the blood in his body. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he did not spit out blood directly, there was blood at the corner of his mouth. This was not the grand astral arena where the sight of blood meant defeat. There would be a formation to separate the two. This was the extraterritorial Starland. Only death was a real defeat. At this moment, a strong murderous intent shot out from Yixing's eyes. Ah, how does fresh blood taste? Zhuqiushan was overjoyed when he saw that. He laughed loudly and the dark weapon halberd shone with a yellow light as he continued to attack Yixing. Whoosh! A ray of starlight shot out from Yixing's glabella and turned into a black hole vortex. Yixing used the black hole astrology. The world in front of Zhuqiushan instantly turned into darkness. He could not even see his own fingers. Yixing's dark grand momentum was oneness of heaven and man. His residual shadow footwork was even more elusive in the dark world. In an instant, he changed his position and Zhuqiushan's attack missed. Yixing's figure merged perfectly with the dark world. Without a sound, Zhuqiushan suddenly lost his sense of Yixing. He could not see Yixing and could not sense Yixing's position. Zhuqiushan was completely blind. Zhuqiushan was shocked. The mountain shadow that was about to dissipate suddenly lit up again. He continued to use the defensive secret skill, Mountain Shield. Double astrology. This guy is a genius with double astrology. In the distance, Cheng Jin and Lung Man noticed the astrological signs above Yixing. Seeing the two astrological signs side by side, the two of them immediately cried out in surprise. As for the dark world that Zhuqiushan was in, he had become blind. The two of them had no idea at all. If they were not in the dark world of the black hole astrology, they would not be able to experience the feeling of falling into darkness. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something tearing through the air resounded. When Zhuqiushan heard the sound of something breaking through the air, the illusory mountain peak outside his body shook violently. It had already been pierced by Yixing's spear. At this moment, Yixing did not pursue quantity, so he did not perform the wind shadow spear art. Instead, he purely combined the power of the heaven and earth, the power of the stars, and the power of the stars. He drew the thickest yuan qi of the heaven and earth, and combined it with the power of his physical body, exploding out with the most powerful attack. This spear only had pure speed and pure power. The mountainous defense was a dark-level defensive secret technique. Its defensive power was very strong, but Zhuqiushan had not cultivated it to a high level. He could still withstand a normal attack from a dark-level weapon, but when Yixing went all out, his defense was a little weak. Yixing's spear pierced directly into the illusory mountain peak. The illusory mountain peak shattered under the attack of the golden rock spear. The distance between the tip of the spear and Zhuqiushan was less than a meter in the blink of an eye. However, the blink of an eye was not short for a venerable one. It was enough for him to react. Zhuqiushan swung the dark-level weapon halberd in his hand and blocked Yixing's spear. Clang! With a crisp sound, Yixing's figure retreated explosively, disappearing without a trace of his aura. Yixing did not fight head-on with Zhuqiushan. As soon as Zhuqiushan blocked it, Yixing took the lead to retreat before Zhuqiushan could exert any force. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yixing attacked from another direction. The golden rock spear was like a fiery dragon that charged forward and stabbed hard into the illusory mountain peak outside Zhuqiushan. When Zhuqiushan heard the sound, Yixing was about to pierce through the illusory mountain peak again. He was less than a meter away from his body. Zhuqiushan's forehead was sweating. With the illusory mountain peak blocking, he had some time to defend himself. He immediately swung the dark-level weapon halberd in his hand. Upon seeing this, Yixing immediately retracted his spear and retreated rapidly. The golden rock spear and the dark-level weapon halberd collided lightly. Once again, he cleverly avoided a head-on collision with Zhuqiushan. Cheng Jin Lung Man! Zhuqiushan shouted. His voice was hurried and a little frightened. Whoosh! At this moment, Yixing's third spear came from an unexpected angle. With each stab, a hole appeared in the illusory mountain peak. Although it was not completely pierced, it greatly reduced the defensive power of the hill suppression. If Yixing continued attacking like this, the illusory mountain peak would be completely shattered in a few strikes. Without the defense of the hill suppression, Zhuqiushan would definitely not be able to withstand the attack of the golden rock spear. Clang! As soon as Wuxia finished speaking, the dark-level weapon halberd collided with the golden rock spear again. However, Yixing cleverly avoided a head-on collision again. He retreated with a light touch. A third hole appeared in the illusory mountain peak outside Wuxia. In the distance, Cheng Jin and Ling Man heard Wuxia's terrified cry. Only then did they know that Wuxia was in a bad situation. "Senior brother Zhua!" Both of them exclaimed at the same time and rushed toward Yixing whoosh. At this moment, Yixing had already launched his fourth spear attack at Wuxia. Cheng Jin and Ling Man were still a few miles away from Yixing. Yixing glanced at both of them and both of them fell into the dark world of the black hole astrology at the same time. They looked shocked. Bang! Due to the obstruction of the illusory mountain peak, Wuxia once again blocked Yixing's attack. However, there were already 4 holes in the illusory mountain peak. Its defensive power was getting weaker and weaker. It could no longer withstand a few strikes from Yixing. "Both of you, come here quickly!" Wuxia shouted. The fear in his voice deepened. A few miles away, Cheng Jin and Ling Man were trapped in the dark world. Only when one was in the dark world would one understand the horror of not being able to see anything. At this moment, Cheng Jin and Ling Man's hearts were trembling with fear. They were afraid that Yixing would suddenly launch an attack in the dark and they would be dead meat. How could they still dare to rush towards Wuxia? After Cheng Jin and Ling Man fell into the dark world, they made the same decision almost simultaneously. Both of them immediately turned around and a supreme-grade flying spiritual weapon appeared behind them. They quickly flew back in the direction they came from. The 5th strike, the 6th strike, the 9th strike, the 10th strike. Every time Yixing thrust his spear, there would be another hole in the illusory mountain peak. Its defensive power would weaken by a notch. When Yixing thrust his spear for the 10th time, the illusory mountain peak finally shattered completely. The golden rock spear was like a stream of light as it instantly pierced Wuxia's head. Wuxia had a mystic-grade defensive inner armor on his body. However, the inner armor could not protect his head. The power of Yixing's spear was terrifying. The tip of the golden rock spear pierced a fist-sized hole in Wuxia's head. It directly shattered his glabella and penetrated his brain, killing him instantly. Bang! Yixing withdrew his spear. Wuxia fell to the ground. Until his death, his eyes were filled with disbelief that he would die in the hands of a half-step venerable one. Chapter 594. At that moment, Cheng Jin and Ling Man had already escaped more than 10 miles away. They had left the dark world and were using their supreme-grade flying spiritual tools to escape at full speed. Yixing glanced at them. The golden rock spear in his hand disappeared and the Big Dipper bow appeared in an instant. Another beam of starlight shot into the sky. Yixing had used the Sagittarius constellation. Yixing pulled the Big Dipper bow into the shape of a full moon. Starlight arrows appeared. The Sagittarius constellation's vitality, 3 types of worldly momentum, 3 types of worldly vitality, astral energy, the 6 transformations of the heart's art of archery. All sorts of powers gathered on the starlight arrows, causing them to shine brightly and contain terrifying power. Yixing pulled the bow twice in the blink of an eye. 2 starlight arrows shot out like meteors. They traveled more than 10 miles in an instant and another 10 miles in the blink of an eye. Cheng Jin and Ling Man, who were fleeing at full speed, did not expect Yixing to be an expert in archery. When they sensed the danger behind them, it was already too late. The starlight arrows shot through the back of their necks and came out of their throats, leaving a thumb-sized hole. Blood gushed out. Both of them screamed at the same time. They covered their throats with both hands and fell from the sky. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness as their lives were quickly drained away. "Trying to escape in front of me," Yixing said faintly. He put away the Big Dipper bow and looked at Wuxia's corpse. Yixing turned on his superbrain and saw through it. He immediately saw Wuxia's flame of destiny. It's a 7-flame green flame. This is the 7-star blue fate. He's destined to become a 7-star king. No wonder he could become a venerable at such a young age. His cultivation talent is monstrous. Yixing exclaimed. He then used the black hole astrology to devour Zhuqiushan's flame of destiny. Zhuqiushan's flame of destiny dwindled bit by bit while Yi Xing's flame of destiny rapidly increased in number. The number of green flames increased from 5 to 6, then to 7, 8, 9. When the number of green flames reached 9, they fused together to form a single green flame. This represented Yi Xing's evolution to the king's mandate. The number of blue flames increased to 7 in the end, representing Yi Xing's ascension to the 7-star blue fate. At this time, Zhuqiushan's flame of destiny had completely disappeared, completely devoured by Yi Xing's 7-star azure life. As long as one had a cultivation technique, one could cultivate all the way to the 7-star king realm. Yi Xing felt excited just thinking about it. In the Star Land, the strongest king realm cultivator was only at the 4th level of the Star Sea realm. Moreover, the supreme king Meng Tai was the only one. A 7-star king realm cultivator was considered a high-level king realm cultivator. Even in the Starry Crescent Land, they were considered experts. The two were not on the same level. Currently, Yi Xing possessed the black level middle tier falling star incantation and could cultivate to the 9-star Reverend Lord realm. However, he was not worried about the black level upper tier and supreme tier cultivation techniques. After he became a reverend, he could continue to train in the Starry Hall and obtain higher tier cultivation techniques and other treasures. Therefore, as long as he had enough time to grow, he would definitely become the strongest person in the Starland in the future. By then, it would be a piece of cake for him to destroy the Great Yuan dynasty. Yi Xing kept the astrology with a smile on his face. He was in a good mood. He could foresee a bright future ahead of him. Yi Xing kept Zhuqiushan's storage ring and took off his black level defensive inner armor. This is a black level defensive inner armor. Even if I hit it with all my might, I wouldn't be able to break its defense. It's a pity that the inner armor can only protect the body but not the head. Yi Xing lamented as he put on the black level defensive inner armor. If the difference in strength between two people was not too great, a defensive inner armor would be very useful during a battle. After all, vital parts like the head and the neck were small and easy to dodge. However, it was extremely difficult to hit them. During a battle, the body would at most be injured. If one had a defensive inner armor, it would be able to withstand the attack on the body. The reason why Zhuqiushan was shot in the head by Yi Xing was because he was in the dark world. Faced with Yi Xing's quick attack, he was unable to defend himself. If he could see clearly, he would definitely not have the time to react to Yi Xing's attack. I told you that if you were to fight, you might be the ones to die. However, you didn't believe me. Be more observant in your next life. Looking at Zhuqiushan's corpse, Yi Xing said. With a point of his finger, fire Yuan Qi gathered and immediately set Zhuqiushan's corpse ablaze. The fire of Yuan Qi was extremely terrifying. Even if a venerable was alive, he would be burned to death by the fire of Yuan Qi. When he was dead, he would not be able to use his astral energy to defend himself. Naturally, he would be burned to ashes very quickly. After a short while, Yi Xing came to the place where Qingjin and Leng Man died. He took their storage rings, the supreme spiritual weapons in their hands, and the spiritual level supreme defensive inner armor on their bodies. Yi Xing pointed his finger and the fire of Yuan Qi gathered immediately. Cheng Jin and Leng Man were only half-step venerables. Their bodies had not been tempered by the thunder calamity. When the fire of Yuan Qi touched them, they turned into ashes within 10 breaths. The azure cloud wings appeared on Yi Xing's back. Yi Xing increased his speed and left the place. When he left, Yi Xing used the dark force to gather the dark Yuan Qi to hide his body silently. Even if someone came to investigate, they would not be able to find traces of him leaving. Yi Xing traveled for an entire day. Although he did not fly at high altitudes, he used the azure cloud wings to shuttle through the forest at an extremely fast speed. He traveled at least tens of thousands of miles in a day. The forest was extraordinarily huge. Yi Xing still could not walk out. The surroundings were still dense with trees. When Yi Xing found a canyon without trees in the endless forest, he stopped in his tracks. The canyon was covered in green grass. Compared to the forest that covered the sky and the sun, it felt much more comfortable. Yixing found a spot in the canyon and sat down. He took out the storage rings of Zhuqiushan, Qingjin, and Lingman. He erased the imprints they left behind and began to check. There were not many things in the storage rings. However, the quality of the items was not low. They were at least high-grade spiritual level treasures or supreme-grade spiritual level treasures. They were very valuable, especially in Zhuqiushan's storage ring. Yixing found a piece of mystic-level metal among the many materials. This is purple profound azure gold? Yixing looked at the purple profound azure gold in his hand and was overjoyed. The purple profound azure gold was a mystic-level metal. The azure cloud wings were made of levitation azure gold. It could absorb all the azure gold to evolve. Now that the azure cloud wings was a supreme-grade flying spirit tool, it could evolve into a mystic-level flying wing after absorbing the purple profound azure gold. He raised his left hand and the azure cloud wings appeared in his left palm. He held the purple profound azure gold in his right hand and used the union of heaven and man's fire force to ignite the fire yuan qi between heaven and earth. Chapter 595. The purple profound azure gold was incinerated by the fire and turned into a scarlet liquid that was absorbed by the azure cloud wings. As more and more of the purple profound azure gold was absorbed, the azure cloud wings gradually emitted an intense light. When the entire piece of purple profound azure gold was absorbed, the azure cloud wings already had a hint of purple. At this time, the azure cloud wings aura was much stronger than when it was at the peak grade of the spirit grade. It had already evolved to the profound grade. Moreover, the purple profound azure gold's grade was not low. According to Yixing's judgment, the azure cloud wings grade was very likely to have evolved to the middle grade of the profound grade. Yixing clenched his fist and the azure cloud wings returned to his body. In the next moment, Yixing's thoughts moved and a pair of huge azure wings grew out of Yixing's back. Every feather of the azure wings had a hint of purple in it. They were all made of metal and emitted a cold light. These sharp feathers were very sturdy and not weaker than profound-grade weapons. They could be used as weapons. Feeling the surging aura of the azure cloud wings, Yixing's lips curled into a smile. After the azure cloud wings evolved to the middle grade of the profound grade, how fast would its speed be? Yixing could conclude that on the star continent, unless it was a sovereign lord with profound grade wings, his speed would not be inferior to any ordinary sovereigns. Yixing withdrew the azure cloud wings and a series of crisp metallic clangs rang out. Just by listening to the sound, one could feel the sharpness of the metal feathers on the azure cloud wings. After coming to this star continent, Yixing's cultivation first increased to the half-step sovereign realm, then his destiny evolved to the 7-star king destiny. Now, the azure cloud wings had evolved to the low grade of the profound grade. Yixing felt extremely happy just thinking about it. People were in high spirits when faced with happy events. Yixing's current state of mind was especially different. His heart was carefree and he even had the thought of drinking a few cups. Yixing had the drunken immortal wine that the Black Biao King had given him. He immediately took out a bottle and drank a mouthful. Awesome. Although it was awesome, just drinking wine made him feel like something was missing. Yixing took out some of the crystal fire beast's tender meat and started a fire to roast it. Roasted crystal fire beast meat with drunken xian, or wine, was a perfect match. The crystal fire beast's tender meat rolled on top of the fire. Not long after, it turned golden and shone with a fragrant aroma. The grease slid down and fell into the fire, making crackling noises. Just as the crystal fire beast's tender meat was about to be cooked, the fragrance attracted a guest. A white-clothed youth around 16 or 17 years old was attracted by the fragrance. He sat down in front of Yixing and said, "It smells so good. Brother, can you share some with me?" The white-clothed young man had a graceful bearing, giving people a gentle feeling like a gentle breeze caressing one's face. Yixing smiled indifferently and said, "It's better for 2 people to be happy than 1 person. Brother, if you're in the mood, drink with me." As he spoke, Yixing took out a bottle of drunken immortal wine and threw it over. Yixing knew nothing about the extraterritorial starland and the starry crescent land. He wanted to ask someone, but Wuxia and the others wanted to kill him. This white-clothed young man's temperament was completely different from Wuxia and the others. Moreover, he had an easygoing attitude. Yi Xing was naturally willing to part with some drunken immortal wine and crystal fire beast's tender meat. Moreover, Yi Xing used his superbrain to scan the white-clothed young man's cultivation. He was at the first level of astral-reaching realm, similar to Wuxia. Even a genius like Wuxia, who could challenge those above his level, was killed by Yi Xing. Yi Xing was naturally not afraid of this white-clothed young man. The white-clothed young man took the bottle of drunken immortal wine and drank a mouthful, then said, "Good wine. Brother, you actually have such good food and wine. I'm really envious. It's my fortune to be able to meet you and taste such good wine and food." Yi Xing could tell from the white-clothed young man's tone that he knew he was not a martial artist from the Starry Crescent land. At this moment, the tender meat of the crystal fire beast had been roasted. Yi Xing cut half of it and gave it to the white-clothed young man, then said, "Brother, accompany me to eat meat and drink wine. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Is that okay?" The white-clothed young man smiled and said, "Is it about the Starry Crescent land?" Yi Xing nodded and said, "Also, this is my first time here. I'd like to ask you to introduce it to me." "No problem," the white-clothed young man said, then took a bite of the crystal fire beast's tender meat. His eyes immediately lit up and he praised, "Delicious! I've never tasted anything as delicious as this even in the Starry Crescent land. With such good wine, it's a perfect match." Yi Xing smiled faintly. It seemed that this Feng Xiaoxiao was also a foodie. Yi Xing took a bite of the crystal fire beast's tender meat and drank a mouthful of Xianxia wine. Although it was very comfortable, it was no longer as shocking as it was at the beginning. The white-clothed young man savored the taste for a few breaths of time and drank another mouthful of Xianxia. Then he smacked his lips and said, "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Feng Xiaoxiao, a disciple of the Big Dipper Sword sect in the Starry Crescent land." Yi Xing also reported his name. Yi Xing, from a low-level continent. Yi Xing did not know whether martial artists from mid-level continents could go to low-level continents. Previously, he had killed 3 disciples from the Celestial Elephant Palace in the Starry Crescent land. It was very likely that he would be found out. Therefore, he only reported his name and did not mention which continent he was from. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Near the Starry Crescent land, there are a total of 8 low-level continents. Martial artists from low-level continents can reach the Starry Crescent land through the spatial passageways connecting the low-level and mid-level continents." Yi Xing's eyes lit up. If there came a day when he became the strongest martial artist in the Starry Crescent land, his strength would exceed the Starry Crescent land's capacity. In that case, he might be related to the Starry Crescent land. His current destiny was as high as a 7-star blue destiny, and he could cultivate to become a 7-star king. However, the Starry Crescent land's providence was limited. If he wanted to become a 7-star king, he would have to leave the Starry Crescent land and go to the Starry Crescent land. It seemed that one day in the future, Yi Xing would go to the Starry Crescent land. Yi Xing said, "The Starry Crescent land is a mid-level continent. Its martial arts must be much stronger than the low-level continents. Are there many quasi-gods?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "It's a shame to say that the Starry Crescent land is the weakest mid-level continent. It is not much stronger than the low-level continents. The continent's providence can only support martial artists to reach the first nirvana quasi-god level. Moreover, it is rare for one to appear in many years. Therefore, there are not many quasi-gods." Yi Xing asked, "What kind of power is the Celestial Elephant Palace in the Starry Crescent land? How is it compared to the Big Dipper Sword sect?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "The Celestial Elephant Palace and the Big Dipper Sword sect are 2 of the strongest forces in the Starry Crescent land. Each sect has a quasi-god as their leader, and they can barely be considered as 4-star forces. There are a total of 7 sects in the Starry Crescent land with quasi-gods as their leaders. They are the Demon Sealing Valley, the Giant Spirit sect, the Golden Lion sect, the Moon Severing sect, the Celestial Elephant Palace, the Dark Een Palace, and the Big Dipper Sword sect." Chapter 596. At this point, Feng Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Brother, since you're asking about Celestial Elephant Palace, it seems like you've come into contact with their disciples. Something unpleasant must have happened." Yixing glanced at Feng Xiaoxiao without batting an eyelid. She had managed to come to this conclusion just because he had asked about Celestial Elephant Palace. Clearly, she was a meticulous person and understood the personalities of the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace very well. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Brother, please don't be offended. The disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace are arrogant and despotic. If you meet them, they will definitely bully you. A fight is inevitable." Since she had made it clear, Yixing did not hide anything and said, "I met 3 disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace. One of them is called Wuxia, and he brought 2 half-step honorables with him. I did get into a fight with them. Are there any other disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace in the extraterritorial star continent?" Feng Xiaoxiao nodded and said, "Every 30 years, the extraterritorial star continent opens. The 7 major sects of Starry Crescent Land will send in 100 disciples below the age of 25. The Giant Spirit Sect, the Golden Lion Sect, the Moon Severing Sect, the Dark Een Palace, and the Big Dipper Sword Sect each occupy 14 spots. Among them, the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace occupy 15 spots each. There are many disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace in this extraterritorial star continent." Yixing asked, "Why do the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace have 1 more spot each?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Although the 7 major sects have quasi-gods in charge and are the most powerful forces in Starry Crescent Land, there are still differences in strength among the 7 major sections. The Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace are the 2 most powerful forces among the 7 major sections. Whoever has the biggest fist has the most say. The 100 spots can't be divided equally among the 7 major sections. Therefore, the 2 extra spots will be taken by the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace each. Who can say no?" Yixing nodded and asked, "How is Wuxia's strength among the 15 spots in Celestial Elephant Palace? Is he considered first-rate?" Feng Xiaoxiao chuckled and said, "Wuxia, first-rate? Brother Yi, you've underestimated the younger generation disciples of the 7 major sections. Every sect only selected a dozen people to enter this place. Which one of them isn't an elite? Furthermore, Celestial Elephant Palace is one of the 2 most powerful forces. Of course, their younger generation disciples are full of geniuses. Wuxia's ability is considered to be in the 3rd tier among Celestial Elephant Palace's disciples." Yixing was surprised. Wuxia's strength is only at the 3rd grade. Wuxia's cultivation base was at the 1st level of astral reaching realm, but his strength was a notch higher than an ordinary 2-star reverend. In the Starland, he would definitely be one of the top experts among the 2-star reverends. However, among the disciples of Star Elephant Palace, he was only at the 3rd level. This made Yixing feel surprised. This was because the younger generation martial artists who entered this extraterritorial starland were all below the age of 25. If Wuxia's strength was at the 3rd grade, then how strong would the geniuses who were at the 1st grade be? Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Among the younger generation martial artists who entered this extraterritorial starland, those with the strength of 2-star reverends are at the 3rd grade. Those with the strength of 3-star reverends are at the 2nd grade. Only those with the strength of 4-star reverends are at the 1st grade. Wuxia's strength is considered an expert among 2-star reverends, but compared to 3-star reverends, he's nothing. 4-star reverends were already mid-level reverends. Their strength had a huge gap compared to 3-star reverends. Wuxia was not even 25 years old, but he already had the strength of a 4-star reverend. Compared to the younger generation of Starland, such a person was simply a monster among monsters. Although Yixing had an extremely strong ability to challenge those of a higher grade, he knew that if he were to face a 4-star reverend, he would not be a match for them even if he used all his trump cards. Wuxia and the other 2 had already died in Yixing's hands. If the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace were to investigate, It was very likely that they would find out that Yi Xing was the culprit. It was inevitable that they would become enemies. When it came to enemies, it was natural to first understand them. Only by knowing one's own strength and the enemy's strength would one be able to come up with a countermeasure. Yi Xing said, "Brother Feng, are you familiar with the experts among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace? Can you give me some pointers?" Feng Xiaoxiao tore off a mouthful of the crystal fire beast's tender meat as she nodded. Then she drank a mouthful of Zhuixian or wine and said, "You were able to come out unscathed after encountering Wuxia. Then, among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace, only the 4 people in the 1st and 2nd grade can threaten you. The 2 in the 2nd grade were Linghu Feiyang and Yen Lan. Both of them were 2-star reverends, but they had the ability to challenge those of a higher grade. The 2 in the 1st grade were Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu. Xing Liang was a 3-star reverend, and he had the highest cultivation among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace. Xing Liuyu was a 2-star reverend, but both he and Xing Luyang had reached the level of a 4-star reverend. Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu were the younger generation of Celestial Elephant Palace's #1 clan, the Star Clan. They had the bloodline of a quasi-god in their bodies, and they were extremely powerful. Xing Liuyu, in particular, was even stronger than Xing Liang even though he was only a 2-star reverend. He was considered a powerhouse among the 4-star reverends. "Brother Yi, you have a grudge against Celestial Elephant Palace. It's fine if you encounter Linghu Feiyang and Yen Lan, but if you encounter Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, try your best to run as far as possible." Yi Xing was secretly shocked. She had become a reverend and could challenge those of a higher grade than her. If she had been a celestial dipper sage, she might not have been any weaker than Yi Xing. After Feng Xiaoxiao finished speaking, she took out a disc array. The disc array recorded the array, and a ray of light shot out, revealing the silhouettes of 2 people. Yi Xing nodded and said, "Xing Liang, Xing Liuyu, I'll remember them." Feng Xiaoxiao put away the disc array and said, "Among the 100 young geniuses who entered the extraterritorial Starland, there are no more than 5 who are in the 1st grade. However, Celestial Elephant Palace has 2 of them. Brother Yi, you've offended Celestial Elephant Palace, so you must be careful." As she spoke, Feng Xiaoxiao took out a map and handed it to Yi Xing. "The forest we're in is called the Undirectional Forest. Without a map, you can't leave. Refine this map and your location will be displayed on the map. Then, you can use the map to find your way out. However, you must remember that there is a restriction on flying above the Undirectional Forest. Do not fly above the forest." Yi Xing took the map and said, "Brother Feng, can you still leave the Undirectional Forest without a map? Why don't we leave together?" Feng Xiaoxiao waved her hand and said, "There are people after me, and one of them is a disciple of Celestial Elephant Palace. If you follow me, the chances of us encountering a few experts from Celestial Elephant Palace are very high. That will be even more dangerous. My opponents are very strong, so I can only protect myself. I can't take care of you." Yi Xing blinked, and his eyes were filled with shock. Feng Xiaoxiao's words revealed a piece of information that surprised Yi Xing. It could even be said to be shocking. Yi Xing looked at Feng Xiaoxiao and said, "You're also one of the 1st grade experts." Chapter 597. The Astral Elephant Palace had 2 1st-grade experts and Feng Xiaoxiao was being hunted down by the experts from the Astral Elephant Palace. Moreover, from what Feng Xiaoxiao had said, it seemed that there were disciples from other sects as well. If Feng Xiaoxiao was able to protect herself, there was an 80 to 90% chance that her strength was also 1st grade. However, Feng Xiaoxiao was only at the 1st level of Astral Reaching Realm, a 1-star venerable. The 1st grade strength was at the level of a 4-star venerable. In the history of the Starry Continent, apart from Yi Xing, there had never been anyone who could challenge someone 3 realms higher than themselves. Moreover, Yi Xing had challenged someone 3 realms higher than himself when he was at the Astral Reaching Realm, while Feng Xiaoxiao had challenged someone 3 realms higher than herself when she was at the Astral Reaching Realm. The difficulty between the 2 was different. This meant that Feng Xiaoxiao's ability to challenge someone 1 realm higher than herself was not the least bit inferior to Yi Xing's. In fact, she might even be stronger when she was at the Taoist realm. After all, the geniuses of mid-grade continents and low-grade continents were on completely different levels. Apart from Yi Xing and Wei Qingxian, the so-called geniuses of the Starry Continent could not even enter the third grade when compared to the geniuses of the Starry Crescent Continent. They could only be considered mediocre. The reason Yi Xing could challenge someone 3 realms higher than himself was because he had a super brain. His perception was astonishing, and he had a profound understanding of worldly influences. His attainments in martial arts far surpassed ordinary people. Moreover, he had the Black Hole constellation and the Sagittarius constellation. Feng Xiaoxiao was Yi Xing's first time encountering someone who was not inferior to him in terms of strength. Naturally, he was astonished and shocked. Feng Xiaoxiao faintly smiled and nodded. Because of this, the Star Elephant Palace seized the opportunity to kill me in the Outer Realm Starland. After receiving Feng Xiaoxiao's confirmation, Yi Xing inwardly sucked in a breath of cold air. He had a new understanding of the geniuses of the Starry Crescent Continent. And at this moment, Feng Xiaoxiao's expression suddenly changed. She cried out in alarm, "Not good, they're here." Yi Xing's expression changed. He was surprised by both Feng Xiaoxiao's reaction and her keen senses, which were even better than his own. To be able to make Feng Xiaoxiao change her expression, it was obvious that this person's strength was at the very top. It wasn't until Feng Xiaoxiao's reminder that Yi Xing sensed the auras of other cultivators approaching. Furthermore, there was more than one aura. More than one cultivator had come. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "The fragrance attracted me here, but it also attracted them. Brother Yi, their target is me, but they won't let you go. They won't take you seriously from the start. You should seize the opportunity to escape." Yi Xing nodded. He did not want to be involved in the battle of the Starry Crescent Land, but it was too late. 5 cultivators appeared in the canyon and locked onto Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao's auras. Yi Xing activated his superbrain and scanned the 5. Their cultivation bases were immediately clear: 1 third-level astral-reaching realm, 2 second-level astral-reaching realm, and 2 first-level astral-reaching realm. Even if the 2 one-star venerables were slightly weaker, like Wuxia, they were at the 3rd level among the young geniuses who had entered the Starry Crescent Land. However, the 2 two-star venerables and the 3-star venerables were undoubtedly powerful. The 3-star venerables was Xing Liang. Yi Xing had seen his array projection before. He was at the 1st level among the young geniuses. But among the 5 of them, the strongest one was not Xing Liang, but the 2-star venerable who stood side by side with him. Yi Xing had also seen his formation projection, and he was the most monstrous genius among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace, Xing Liuyu. As for the other 2-star venerables, he stood slightly behind Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu. He was a man who looked less than 20 years old. Clearly, he was Linghu Fiyang, who was at the 2nd level. As for Yan Lan, who was at the 2nd level, she was a woman and wasn't among the 5. However, with Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, who were at the 1st level, the strength of this group was definitely extremely powerful. "I've searched high and low for you, only to find you by sheer luck. Haha. Feng Xiaoxiao, so you're here." The 3-star venerables, Xing Luyang, swept his gaze across Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao and laughed loudly. "You're not here for me?" Feng Xiaoxiao was surprised. "Brat, you killed my Celestial Elephant Palace disciples and still dare to eat and drink here. How dare you?" As soon as Feng Xiaoxiao finished speaking, the 2-star venerables, Linghu Feiyang, pointed at Yi Xing and shouted angrily. Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao looked at each other. Only then did the 2 of them understand that the Celestial Elephant Palace disciples had chased them here not because they were attracted by the fragrance or because they were chasing after Feng Xiaoxiao, but because they had chased after Yi Xing. Feng Xiaoxiao was speechless. She had thought that Yi Xing had been implicated by her. As it turned out, she had been implicated by Yi Xing. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy for the Celestial Elephant Palace disciples to find her while she was playing hide-and-seek with them in the undirectional forest. "You killed Wuxia and the others?" Feng Xiaoxiao looked at Yi Xing and sounded surprised. Previously, when Yi Xing mentions Wuxia, Feng Xiaoxiao had guessed that Yixing had fought with Zuoqiushan and the others. However, she did not expect that Zuoqiushan and the two half-step venerables had died at Yixing's hands. Feng Xiaoxiao thought that Yixing must have escaped from Zuoqiushan and the other two. Although Zuoqiushan's strength was in the third tier among the younger generation of martial artists in the extraterritorial Star Land, he still possessed the strength of a two-star venerables. On the other hand, Yixing was only a half-step venerables. A half-step venerables had killed a two-star venerables? Feng Xiaoxiao was shocked. Such a genius was extremely rare even in the Starry Crescent land. Yixing was only a half-step venerables from a low-level land. Yixing looked at Feng Xiaoxiao and nodded. His expression was serious as he said, "I've already destroyed the corpses. I didn't expect them to still be able to find me." Feng Xiaoxiao said, "The Celestial Elephant Palace has a secret technique that all outstanding disciples cultivate. If anyone kills an outstanding disciple of the Celestial Elephant Palace, within a certain range, the other martial artists of the Celestial Elephant Palace who have cultivated this secret technique will be able to sense the killer's aura." The 15 disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace who entered the extraterritorial Star Land were all elites. All of them had cultivated this secret technique. When I was being pursued by the Celestial Elephant Palace disciples, I had the opportunity to kill a few of them. However, I did not dare to kill them. "Brother Yi, you've killed Zuoqiushan and the others. You've really gotten yourself into big trouble. The extraterritorial Star Land is not very vast. As long as you're in the extraterritorial Star Land, the Celestial Elephant Palace disciples will be able to sense your location." Yixing's expression changed as he exclaimed, "It can't be. There's actually such a perverted secret technique?" As long as Yixing was in the extraterritorial Star Land, the Celestial Elephant Palace disciples would be able to sense his location no matter where he went. There was no way for him to escape. Such an outcome was something that Yixing never expected. It was like being hit by a hex seal. Back when Yixing killed the Fire Cloud sect's hierarch, he had been hit by the Heavenly Fire hex seal, resulting in him being found by the Fire Cloud sect master. However, Zuoqiushan and company had died without the use of any hex seal. It was obvious that the Celestial Elephant Palace's secret technique was harder to guard against than the Fire Cloud sect's hex seal techniques. Chapter 598. Brat, you don't even know the secret technique of my Celestial Aspect Palace. You're not from the Starry Crescent land. The two-star Venerable Linghu Feiyang shouted again. As trash from an inferior continent, you actually dared to kill a genius disciple of my Celestial Aspect Palace. Your crime is unforgivable. I'll tear you to pieces and let you die without a burial ground. As he spoke, a dark armament sword appeared in Linghu Feiyang's hand. He pointed the sword at Yixing and a sharp aura burst forth. Even though they were far apart, Yixing could still feel the sharp aura. It was clear how strong the aura was. Linghu Feiyang's strength belonged to the second tier. He was able to defeat ordinary 3-star venerables. He was extremely powerful and terrifying. Feng Xiaoxiao stood up and a sharp aura burst forth from his body. In an instant, an illusory sword image enveloped him. The sword image emitted an extremely sharp aura and completely destroyed Linghu Feiyang's sword aura. "How dare you use your sword before me, Feng Xiaoxiao?" Feng Xiaoxiao said indifferently. He emitted a domineering aura that looked down upon the 9 heavens. Feng Xiaoxiao's sword aura was much stronger than Linghu Feiyang's. However, Yixing was enveloped by the sword aura. He did not feel the sharp blade touching his body. Instead, he felt a sense of gentleness. This meant that Feng Xiaoxiao's sword was not purely unyielding. Instead, it was a combination of hardness and gentleness. His attainments in the way of the sword were extremely high. Although Feng Xiaoxiao still had an elegant demeanor, there was an additional domineering aura around him. He had an aura that looked down upon the 9 heavens. As expected of a first-tier cultivator. Just his aura alone is extraordinary. Linghu Feiyang is simply not on the same level as him, Yixing thought to himself. Feng Xiaoxiao. At this moment, the 2-star Venerable Feng Liuyu, who had been silent all this time, spoke. He also erupted with an extremely terrifying aura and a gale rose. Xing Liuyu looked to be 17 or 18 years old. He was the youngest among them and looked very similar to Feng Xiaoxiao. He said, "Feng Xiaoxiao, you're also our prey. You can't even protect yourself at a time like this, yet you still want to play the hero and care about others." As she spoke, the corners of Xing Liuyu's mouth curled up slightly. She revealed a faint smile that was filled with confidence. Xing Liuyu's gaze had been fixed on Feng Xiaoxiao the entire time. He did not even glance at Yixing. Yixing was only a half-step supremacy, so he was completely ignored by Xing Liuyu. Even though Yixing had killed Zuoqiushan, Xing Liuyu did not think much of him. To Xing Liuyu, meeting Feng Xiaoxiao here was the greatest surprise. He. Feng Xiaoxiao smiled faintly and said, "I've drunk Brother Ye's fine wine and eaten Brother Ye's roasted meat. Brother Yi is my friend. With me, Feng Xiaoxiao, around, you won't be able to touch him." Feng Xiaoxiao's gaze swept across Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu. "Do you think that the two of you can deal with me, Feng Xiaoxiao?" Her tone was very confident. It was clear that Feng Xiaoxiao was very confident in her own strength. "Brother Yi, when I fight with Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, you should take the opportunity to leave," Feng Xiaoxiao said and sent a voice transmission to Yi Xing and Xing Gang. Yi Xing glanced at Feng Xiaoxiao. There was a look of gratitude in his eyes, but there was also a hint of worry. This was the first time he had met Feng Xiaoxiao. Feng Xiaoxiao treated him as a friend. Yi Xing did not want Feng Xiaoxiao to put herself in danger because of this. Feng Xiaoxiao understood the meaning in Yi Xing's eyes. Xing Gang sent a voice transmission, "Go ahead and leave. I'm alone and I can come and go as I please. No one can stop me. I can only leave if you leave." Yi Xing nodded slightly. He knew that his current strength was a burden to Feng Xiaoxiao. "Feng Xiaoxiao." The three-star Venerable Xing Liang walked out and said, "Everyone says that among the young geniuses who have entered the Starland, you are the strongest. However, I, Xing Liang, don't think so. Being able to reach the level of a 4-star Venerable with a cultivation base of the first level of Astral Reaching Realm is already a rare peerless genius in Starry Crescent Land. However, with my strength, I can defeat ordinary 4-star Venerables. Can you compare with me?" With every step Xing Liang took, his aura grew stronger. By the time he finished speaking, his entire body had already ignited in flames. The surrounding fire Yuan Qi was attracted by him and attached to his body, forming a blazing flame giant. Xing Liuyang's attainments in the power of fire were very high. He was not weaker than a mid-level Venerable. He was able to attract a large amount of fire Yuan Qi from the universe. A beam of starlight shot up into the sky and turned into a huge flaming star. It was an extreme grade flaming star. This flaming star was in the upper tier of extreme grade. Compared to Yi Xing's extreme grade flaming star, its might was even stronger. Xing Liang raised his hand, and a profound grade spear appeared in his hand. Yi Xing's pupils shrank. This was a mid-grade profound grade spear. It was a grade higher than his golden rock spear. How frightening would a mid-grade profound grade spear be if it was used by Xing Liang? Although Xing Liang said that Feng Xiaoxiao's strength could not compare with his, in reality he was very vigilant. He was very afraid of Feng Xiaoxiao, so he didn't dare to hold back. Feng Xiaoxiao was known by the warriors of the Starry Crescent Land as the strongest warrior among the younger generation of the Starry Crescent Land who had entered the extraterritorial Star Land. Naturally, she had an incredible battle record. It was said that a 4-star honorable had been defeated by Feng Xiaoxiao. Although Xing Liang was dubious about this and thought that it was mostly bragging, he couldn't completely disbelieve it. Therefore, he was very vigilant and cautious towards Feng Xiaoxiao. The spear is called Blazing Flame. It is 9 feet and 8 inches long. It has defeated 3 4-star venerables. Xing Liang said as he moved forward. "Feng Xiaoxiao, today I will see if you are as powerful as the rumors say." Feng Xiaoxiao raised his right hand, and a profound grade sword appeared in his hand. It was also a mid-grade profound grade sword. The sword is called Breeze. It is 3 feet and 3 inches long. It has killed a 4-star venerable. Feng Xiaoxiao held the sword in his hand. He was like a sword. His aura and sword aura were one, and there was no distinction between them. Feng Xiaoxiao glanced at Xing Luyang and then at Xing Liuyu. I say, why don't the two of you come at me together? Don't you want to take my life? How are you qualified to fight me alone? Let me test your strength first. Xing Luyang sneered. He circulated his astral energy, and the fire burned even brighter. He must have cultivated a fire elemental cultivation technique. As soon as he finished speaking, the blazing flame spear in Xing Liuyang's hand emitted a dazzling flame. He thrust his spear forward, and the flaming spear instantly tore through the void and arrived in front of Feng Xiaoxiao. Feng Xiaoxiao waved the mysterious breeze sword in his hand, drawing a mysterious trajectory. His swordsmanship had reached perfection. With a clang, sparks flew, and Xing Liuyang's spear was deflected to the side. Chapter 599. Feng Xiaoxiao's sword was light and looked gentle, but it contained the power to deflect 1,000 pounds with little effort. Xing Liuyang's strength was fully unleashed, but Feng Xiaoxiao had yet to use her astrology. In terms of attack power, Xing Luyang was superior. However, Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship was divine and mysterious. In terms of technique, Feng Xiaoxiao was much better. Xing Liuyang's attack seemed ferocious and powerful, but Feng Xiaoxiao's light sword was able to deflect the attack and neutralize Xing Liuyang's move. It was easy to say but difficult to execute. Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship shocked both Yi Xing and the disciples of Xianxia Palace. Yi Xing's martial arts attainments were high enough. His supreme-grade spiritual martial arts, Wind Shadow Spear Technique, Sky Burning Sun Fist, and Black Flame Arrow Technique were all at the transformative level. However, they were far from being comparable to Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship. No matter what, Yi Xing could not deflect his opponent's attack so easily with his spear, fist, or archery like Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship. Xing Liuyang's spear missed and he frowned. The flames on his body burned even brighter as he shouted angrily, "Take another spear attack from me, Fire Dragon Kill!" Whoosh! The power of fire suddenly exploded. The fire yuan qi in the universe rapidly gathered. Xing Liang thrust his spear forward and the blazing dark spear transformed into a giant fire dragon. The fire dragon roared. It was lifelike. Although it was made of astral energy, its scales, horns, tendons, bones, and skin were constructed as if they were real. It contained a terrifying power. Xing Liang had used the ultimate move of the Black Rank Spear technique. Even a 4-star supremacy would have to retreat when the spear attack was unleashed. The Fire Dragon Spear aura was aimed at Feng Xiaoxiao. However, Yi Xing, who was behind Feng Xiaoxiao, felt his hair stand on end when he saw the Fire Dragon Spear aura. He felt the threat of death and could not help but retreat. Feng Xiaoxiao stood in front of the Fire Dragon Spear aura, but her expression was normal. She was still graceful and imposing. Feng Shui Reincarnation. Feng Xiaoxiao let out a soft cry and her aura exploded once again. In addition to the power of wind, she had also used the power of water. Feng Xiaoxiao brandished the mystical breeze sword in her hand. Instantly, a gigantic vortex appeared in front of her. The vortex was formed from wind and water yuan qi. The two heaven and earth yuan qi fused together to form a mystical sword move. The wind and water whirlpool was like a giant mouth of a monster, containing an extremely terrifying tearing force. The moment the fiery dragon spear rushed into the whirlpool, it was cut into pieces and turned into astral light that splashed in all directions. However, the might of the flame dragon spear aura was truly terrifying. While it was being crushed by the wind and water vortex, it also shattered the vortex layer by layer. In the end, the fiery dragon spear aura and the wind and water whirlpool were both destroyed. Feng Xiaoxiao had once again neutralized the stellar sunstream. Xing Luyang had unleashed his full power, but he could not do anything to Feng Xiaoxiao, who had yet to use her astrology. Did this not mean that the difference in strength between the two of them was huge? This completely enraged Xing Liang. Kill! Xing Liang let out a furious roar as the flame astral gang in his body was almost ignited, erupting with a terrifying flame power. The fire origin qi in the universe was attracted by Xing Liang and became even more active. The fire origin qi gathered and Xing Liang turned into a flaming giant. His might shook the heavens. As he roared, the ardent inferno spear in Xing Liuyang's hand attacked again and again. Every spear attack turned into a fiery dragon spear aura as he executed his ultimate technique. His strength was beyond his usual level, and he had unleashed 120% of his strength. Xing Liang was going all out. Every spear attack contained a terrifying amount of power. Even though Feng Xiaoxiao's wind and water reincarnation was extremely profound, it could not neutralize Xing Liuyang's fiery dragon spear aura in time. Xing Liuyang entered a berserk state and finally broke the stalemate. He gained the upper hand in the battle. Feng Xiaoxiao kept retreating under Xing Liuyang's attacks. "How dare you not use your astrology when fighting me? You shall be defeated!" Xing Liuyang roared. He became more and more arrogant, and his might grew stronger with each attack. "You want to see my combat power when I use my astrology? As you wish." Feng Xiaoxiao was at a disadvantage that could no longer be turned around. She immediately shouted. In an instant, a ray of starlight shot out from between Feng Xiaoxiao's eyebrows and turned into a huge star that floated in the sky. This was an enormous hurricane star. But unlike ordinary hurricane stars, this hurricane star emitted a pure and holy glow. Moreover, it emanated a terrifying baleful aura. Saint-level astrology, baleful wind star. It's a saint-level astrology, the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace exclaimed. Yi Xing was also surprised. Feng Xiaoxiao's astrology was obviously much stronger than an extreme-grade astrology. Yi Xing was very knowledgeable, and he had heard of saint-level astrology. It was a level higher than an extreme-grade astrology, and was second only to an ultimate-grade astrology. There were a total of 6 grades of astrology. They were normal grade, medium grade, high grade, extreme grade, saint level, and ultimate grade. Under normal circumstances, having an extreme grade astrology was already very good. Kings usually had extreme grade astrology, while saint level astrology was commonly possessed by quasi-gods and true gods. Having a saint level astrology meant that one had the potential to become a quasi-god. If one's fate was high, becoming a quasi-god was almost certain. The first 4 grades of astrology were only divided into attributes. There were very few astrology that had individual names. For example, a fire attribute astrology was called a flame astrology, while a water attribute astrology was called a water astrology. Only a few ominous stars had their own names. However, at the saint-level astrology, things were different. Every saint-level astrology had its own name. For example, Feng Xiaoxiao's astrology was called the Baleful Wind Star. Not only did it contain powerful wind attribute stellar energy, but it also had a murderous aura. Its power was shocking, and it was not something an extreme-grade astrology could compare to. Feng Xiaoxiao used the Baleful Wind Star, and her aura underwent a drastic change. If her sword aura was a combination of hardness and gentleness before, it was now a peerless domineering aura. Her sword aura seemed to be invincible, and it could slash in all directions. "Get lost!" Feng Xiaoxiao shouted, and the mysterious clear breeze sword shone brightly. She swung her sword, and an energy sword shot out. The azure dragon energy spear in front of her was cut in half. Feng Xiaoxiao's figure flashed like a stream of light, and the mysterious clear breeze sword instantly appeared in front of Xing Liuyang. Clang! Xing Liuyang was shocked. He blocked with his ardent flame spear, and it collided with the mysterious clear breeze sword. In an instant, a terrifying force was transmitted from the ardent flame spear, and Xing Liuyang's body was sent flying backward. In the blink of an eye, Xing Liuyang retreated several miles. His body was sent flying by the force of Feng Xiaoxiao's sword, and he flipped a few times in the air before finally crashing into the cliff on the other side of the canyon. Bang! Rubble flew everywhere, and the ground shook. A large part of the cliff had been dented by Xing Liuyang. Chapter 600. The power of Feng Xiaoxiao's sword was too terrifying. Xing Liang could not withstand it at all. He could not even take a single blow from Feng Xiaoxiao. So powerful! Yi Xing sucked in a cold breath. Xing Liuyang had defeated an ordinary 4-star venerable. It was clear that Xing Liuyang's strength was relatively strong among 4-star venerables. For Feng Xiaoxiao to be able to repel Xing Liuyang with a single blow, her strength must be at the top among 4-star venerables. Other than Xing Liuyu, the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace were all dumbfounded. They did not expect Feng Xiaoxiao, who had been evading their pursuit, to be so powerful. Xing Liuyu's eyes were also filled with shock. However, he was not an ordinary person. His expression remained calm. "You are indeed as terrifying as the rumors say." Xing Liuyu snorted coldly and said, "However, the limit of your strength is still a 4-star venerable. You have not reached the level of a 5-star venerable. Today will be the day you die." As he spoke, a beam of starlight shot out from between Xing Liuyu's eyebrows. It turned into a golden star. It was an extreme metal elemental astrology. Xing Liuyu raised his hand and a dazzling dark weapon appeared in his hand. He walked step by step toward Feng Xiaoxiao. Xing Liuyu said, "In terms of bloodline, understanding of force, and control of vitality, I am not inferior to you. Only I am slightly weaker than you. However, my cultivation is also one level higher than yours. Our strength should not be too far apart. If I join forces with Xing Liuyang, we can defeat you. Today, you will die under my golden feather sword." With every step he took, Xing Liuyu's sword force became stronger. Xing Liuyu's body was enveloped by the shadow of a sword force. It was formed by the condensation of a powerful sword force. Its aura was sharp, fierce, and terrifying. Xing Liuyu was also a powerful swordsman. His attainments in swordsmanship were not inferior to Feng Xiaoxiao's. He was also one with the sword. Feng Xiaoxiao pointed the clear breeze sword forward. The tip of the sword pointed at Xing Liuyu and said, "Ever since we entered the extraterritorial starland, the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace have been plotting against me. I have endured for a long time. Since this battle is unavoidable, let us settle this today and see who will live and who will die." "That," Xing Liuyu shouted coldly. As soon as he spoke, he attacked. He attacked with a killing blow. Whoosh! The star stream feather thrust forward like a flash of golden light. The tip of the sword instantly reached Feng Xiaoxiao's throat and a sharp sword force shot out. What a fast sword! Yi Xing's eyes widened, and he quickly activated his superbrain to scan the area. Star Flow Feather's slash was so fast that even he could not see it clearly. He had to use his superbrain to scan the area. The sword was so fast that the other party didn't even have time to react before his throat was pierced and he died. However, Feng Xiaoxiao was no ordinary opponent. He was also a peerless swordsman. Furthermore, he was proficient in the power of the wind. His speed was also his forte. He was in no way inferior to Xing Liuyu. The mysterious clear wind sword brought out a faint light and was as fast as flowing light. With a crisp sound, the flowing star feather's sword was deflected. "Die!" Xing Liuyu shouted again. His handsome face was filled with viciousness and murderous intent. Xing Liuyu's sword force flashed with golden light. Each strike was faster than the last. The golden sword force was densely packed as it shot toward Feng Xiaoxiao. In the blink of an eye, it was unknown how many strikes were made. Yi Xing blinked. Now that he had activated his superbrain to scan the area, he could see Xing Liuyu's attack clearly. However, he was still shocked. His wind shadow spear technique had reached perfection. It was all about the speed of the spear. However, it was far from being able to compare to the speed of Xing Liuyu's sword. Even though Yi Xing could see Xing Liuyu's attack clearly, he had a feeling that he would not be able to block it. Feng Xiaoxiao's expression remained calm as she faced Xing Liuyu's swift sword attack. She did not even take half a step back. The mysterious clear wind sword danced in Feng Xiaoxiao's hand faster and faster. Soon, the blade was nowhere to be seen. All that could be seen were the afterimages of the sword. The area around Feng Xiaoxiao was enveloped by sword light. No matter how fast Xing Liuyu's attacks were, They were all blocked by Feng Xiaoxiao. Both of them were peerless swordsmen. Their swordsmanship was divine. Furthermore, the speed of their swords was shockingly fast. However, in terms of style, both of them were different. Xing Liuyu's swordsmanship was cunning and vicious. Coupled with his extremely fast speed, it was impossible to guard against. When fighting against Xing Liuyu, if one's strength was on par with Xing Liuyu, the slightest lapse in defense could result in death. Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship, on the other hand, was much more impressive. His movements were bold and straightforward. When he stood there, he was like a towering mountain. He did not move much and did not attack from tricky angles by moving his body. However, every strike of his had a miraculous effect. No matter how cunning, vicious, or fast Xing Liuyu's attacks were, they were always blocked by the sword in Feng Xiaoxiao's hand. From this, it could be seen that although both of them were evenly matched, Feng Xiaoxiao gave off the feeling that she was stronger. Since Xing Liuyu's swift attacks were ineffective, he immediately changed his strategy. The golden light of the mysterious gold feather sword became brighter and brighter. It even emitted a buzzing sound. Black Class Martial Art, Gold Radiant Strike. Gold Radiant Strike was a black class lower class martial art. It used the vibrations of the gold yuan qi to increase one's attacking power and destructive power. It was a black class martial art with terrifying lethality. Among the 5 elemental yuan qi, the gold yuan qi was one of the sharpest. When it vibrated, the sharpness of the gold yuan qi was terrifying. If one was hit by it, the consequences would be dire. When Xing Liuyu executed the Gold Radiant Strike, his attacking speed slowed down significantly. However, his attacking power increased tremendously, especially his destructive power. If one was hit by it, the stellar shield would not be able to withstand it. Even with the protection of the black class inner armor, one could still be injured. When Xing Liuyu's swordsmanship changed, Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship changed as well. It went from fast to slow. There was a layer of water ripples on the mysterious clear wind sword. This was the result of drawing in the water yuan qi in the universe. Xing Liuyu had an extremely deep understanding of the wind and gold forces of heaven and earth. He had reached the unity of heaven and man realm. Therefore, the wind yuan qi and gold yuan qi that he drew were very powerful. Feng Xiaoxiao had also comprehended 2 types of worldly forces to the state of unity of heaven and man. They were the grand force of wind and the grand force of water. At this moment, Feng Xiaoxiao was using a water-type black class martial art, soft water sword technique. The softest thing in the world was water. Feng Xiaoxiao's soft water sword art was extremely proficient. It used softness to overcome hardness. It was enough to neutralize any 4-star supremacy's attack. Xing Liuyu's Gold Radiant Strike had a terrifying attacking power. However, under Feng Xiaoxiao's soft water sword art, it could not unleash its full power. Feng Xiaoxiao's swordsmanship looked soft and gentle. However, every time she swung her sword, she was able to restrain Xing Liuyu's attack. Xing Liang! Xing Liuyu shouted. He had already given his all, but he could not do anything to Xing Liuyu. Only by teaming up with Xing Liang could he pressure Feng Xiaoxiao. Chapter 601. Astral Reaching Realm warriors had been tempered by the Thunder Calamity, which made their bodies extremely tough. Not only did they have a strong life force, but their defensive power was also extremely powerful. Unless they were directly hit by a dark weapon, it was difficult for a venerable to be injured. Just now, Xing Liang had been pushed back a few miles by Feng Xiaoxiao's sword. His body had collided with the cliff wall and it looked terrifying. However, in reality, Xing Liang had only suffered some superficial wounds. They were not serious. While Xing Liuyu and Feng Xiaoxiao were fighting, Xing Liuyang had already emerged from the rubble. He had been waiting for an opportunity to launch a surprise attack on Feng Xiaoxiao. However, Feng Xiaoxiao was always so calm and unhurried in battle. Xing Liuyang had never found a good opportunity. Now, Xing Liuyu was unable to do anything to Feng Xiaoxiao even if he went all out. If this battle dragged on, he would definitely lose. Xing Liuyang could no longer afford to wait for an opportunity. The ardent flame's profound spear in his hand glowed brightly as he unleashed the fiery dragon spear technique and charged towards Feng Xiaoxiao. Feng Shui reincarnation. In the face of Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu's joint attack, Feng Xiaoxiao remained calm and unhurried as she swung her sword. Every time he attacked with his sword, it looked like a casual attack. It was extremely natural, but the power it contained was extremely terrifying. His swordsmanship was extremely profound. When Feng Xiaoxiao did not use her astrology, she was able to defend against Xing Liuyang's full-powered attack by executing the Feng Shui Samsara, an ultimate move that fused the wind and water elemental energies. Now, Feng Xiaoxiao had used the saint-level astral aspect, the baleful wind star. It was the same ultimate move, but its power was on a completely different level. The fiery dragon spear aura couldn't even withstand a single blow from the wind and water vortex. Wherever the wind and water vortex passed, both Xing Liuyang's fiery dragon spear aura and Xing Liuyu's golden light sword aura shattered. Feng Xiaoxiao was fighting one against two, Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, the two great geniuses of Celestial Elephant Palace. She was not at a disadvantage. Brother Yi, seize the opportunity and leave. As Feng Xiaoxiao fought, she did not forget to send a voice transmission to Yi Xing. Right now, Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu were engaged in a fierce battle with Feng Xiaoxiao. Among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace, only Linghu Feiyang was a threat. However, without Xing Luyang and Xing Yu, two monstrous four-star venerable realm geniuses, blocking their path, it was the best time to leave. Brat, don't even think about running. I, Linghu Feiyang, will deal with you. While Feng Xiaoxiao was transmitting her voice, Linghu Feiyang let out a loud shout. A pair of mystic-grade flight wings appeared behind him. With a flap of the wings, he instantly charged to the other side of the canyon, blocking Yi Xing's path of retreat. In the canyon, Feng Xiaoxiao, Xing Luyang, and Xing Liuyu were engaged in a fierce battle. Yi Xing was blocked by two one-star supremacies in front of him and Linghu Feiyang, a two-star supremacy behind him. There was a flight restriction in the sky, so Yi Xing could only break through from the front or the back. The golden rock spear appeared in his hand. A beam of starlight shot out from between Yi Xing's eyebrows and turned into a flaming star. A terrifying flame aura erupted. Yi Xing's body gathered a large amount of fire origin energy, like a messenger of fire. Yi Xing turned around and looked at Linghu Feiyang, revealing a shocking battle intent. He chose the stronger Linghu Feiyang as his target instead of the two one-star supremacies on the other side. That was because Yi Xing knew that if he tried to break through in the direction of the two one-star supremacies, Linghu Feiyang would definitely catch up to him immediately. However, if he tried to break through in the direction of Linghu Feiyang, the two one-star supremacies would not interfere. Linghu Feiyang was a second-grade junior powerhouse. If he rushed up to help a half-step supremacy, wouldn't that be an insult to him? If he tried to break through in two directions, he would have to deal with three supremacies at the same time in one direction and only one supremacy in the other direction. Yi Xing naturally chose to deal with one. Kill! Yi Xing shouted coldly. He used the power of fire to the extreme and drew out a large amount of fire origin energy. The golden rock spear blossomed with incomparably resplendent light. Using the power of wind, Yi Xing's speed was as fast as a ghost. In an instant, he appeared in front of Linghu Feiyang and lashed out with the golden rock spear. Boom! There was an explosion in the void. The power of the spear was enough to shatter mountains. It was terrifying. Linghu Feiyang faced the spear and punched out. A green fist light bloomed. In an instant, it was as big as a small mountain and fiercely hit the golden rock spear. Bang! Terrifying gang chi instantly spread out in all directions, forming a terrifying shockwave. The golden rock spear bounced back. Linghu Feiyang was also surprised when he felt a terrifying impact. If it weren't for his amazing strength, he would have definitely been pushed back. Whoosh! Linghu Feiyang instantly used his astrology. Starlight soared into the sky and turned into a green star. It was lush and full of wood energy. It was an extreme wood element astrology. The wood element grew and multiplied endlessly. It was not outstanding in terms of attack power, but it had the advantage of being long-lasting. Moreover, the wood element star power had a healing effect. A small injury could be healed in an instant. While Ling Hu Feiyang was using his astrology, Yi Xing had already launched his second attack. "Get lost!" Ling Hu Feiyang shouted softly. He wore a pair of dark weapon gloves on his hands and punched forward twice. The fist energy shook the void. The astral energy rushed out and condensed with the wood element star power and wood energy. It turned into thick vines and fiercely struck forward, colliding with the golden rock spear. Boom! Yi Xing only felt a terrifying impact. The golden rock spear in his hand shook violently and his body involuntarily retreated hundreds of meters. Although the wood element was not outstanding in terms of attack power, Ling Hu Feiyang was too strong. He had the strength of a 3-star venerable. After using his astrology, his strength was fully unleashed. Yi Xing could not resist at all. Seeing that Ling Hu Feiyang was about to attack again, Yi Xing used the afterimage footwork. His figure suddenly split into many afterimages. Yi Xing's residual shadow footwork, coupled with the momentum of the wind from the oneness of heaven and man, as well as the gathering of the wind elemental qi in his body, Yi Xing's speed was extremely fast, and his footwork was superb. "You want to escape in front of me, Ling Hu Feiyang?" Ling Hu Feiyang sneered. He turned his fist into a palm and grabbed in all directions as fast as lightning. In an instant, the vine astral energy exploded and extended out one after another. With Ling Hu Feiyang as the center, it spread out like a spider web and sealed the exit of the canyon. No matter how many afterimages Yi Xing had, it was impossible for him to rush out. Before Yi Xing rushed out of the canyon, his figure merged and his brows tightened. Ling Hu Feiyang's ability was indeed a huge advantage compared to other cultivators in stopping others from escaping. However, Yi Xing's ability was not only limited to that. Whoosh! Another ray of starlight soared into the sky and turned into a black hole vortex. Yi Xing had used the black hole astrology. Ling Hu Feiyang, who was sneering, suddenly stiffened and showed a trace of surprise. Suddenly, his surroundings turned into darkness. He could not see his own fingers. He had fallen into a world of darkness. There was actually an astrology that could make people unable to see anything? Ling Hu Feiyang was shocked. At the same time, he suddenly understood the cause of Wuxia Shan's death. Chapter 602. Although Ling Hu Feiyang had sent out a lot of vines, it was still impossible to guard the entire exit of the canyon. Before, although Yi Xing's speed was fast, Ling Hu Feiyang could still see Yi Xing's figure. Now that he was trapped in the world of darkness, he could not even see his own fingers. Furthermore, Yi Xing used the power of darkness to gather the energy of darkness on his body. His body merged perfectly with the world of darkness, concealing all auras, making Ling Hu Feiyang unable to sense his position with the secret technique of the Celestial Elephant Palace. In an instant, Yi Xing completely disappeared from Ling Hu Feiyang's senses. On the other side of the canyon, the two 1-star venerables of the Celestial Elephant Palace saw everything clearly. They did not fall into the world of darkness, so they could not feel the darkness formed by the black hole's celestial form. However, they could clearly see that Yi Xing's body had gathered the energy of darkness. They saw Yi Xing's entire body was enveloped by pitch-black energy. His figure shuttled through the vines of the vines, quickly moving out of the canyon. Why isn't senior brother Ling Hu blocking it? The two 1-star venerables were very puzzled. Brat, get out here! Ling Hu Feiyang could not see Yi Xing. He could not see anything. His expression was furious as he roared. As he roared, Ling Hu Feiyang's attacks became even more violent. Vines of the vines lashed out madly. They were densely packed. That said, although Ling Hu Feiyang's attacks were very fierce, they were all random and aimless attacks. Thus, Yi Xing was always able to easily dodge them. Soon, Yi Xing overtook Ling Hu Feiyang and planned to rush out of the ravine. Yi Xing's azure cloud wings were already black rank mid-rank. In addition to his union of heaven and man power of wind, as long as he escaped out of the canyon with his speed, it would not be easy for the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace to catch up to him. There was hope for him to escape. However, seeing that he was about to escape out of the canyon, Yixing's heart inexplicably jumped. A fatal feeling of danger arose in him. Yixing's dark force was the union of heaven and man. His senses in the dark world were extremely sensitive. The moment he sensed danger, he immediately sensed that a figure had suddenly appeared in the darkness in front of him. This figure was actually able to blend into the darkness. Clearly, he had a deep understanding of the power of darkness. He hid there silently, and Yixing only discovered him when he got closer. The moment Yixing sensed the figure flashed and appeared in front of Yixing. A sharp light shot towards Yixing's throat. Not good. Yixing's expression changed and he instantly retreated. This person's attack speed was too fast. Even Yixing couldn't dodge it. Fortunately, Yixing retreated quickly, so the cold light didn't penetrate his throat. Wind Shadow Spear Art. The Golden Rock Mystic Spear instantly lashed out, and Yixing unleashed his fastest spear technique, instantly sweeping aside the oncoming cold light. The attacker's strength was extremely strong, and his reaction was extremely fast. The cold light changed directions and avoided the collision with the Golden Rock Profound Spear. It directly slammed into Yixing's chest. Puff! Yixing immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was sent flying for several miles. In the blink of an eye, he had returned to the center of the canyon. So strong. Yixing was greatly shocked. The attacker's strength was not inferior to Linghu Feiyang's. He had the strength of a 3-star venerable. Fortunately, Yixing was wearing the low profound rank protective inner armor that he had obtained from Meng Yuanjun. Otherwise, the attack just now would have definitely pierced through the defense of the top spiritual rank protective inner armor and pierced through Yixing's body. If that were the case, Yixing's injury wouldn't be as simple as spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood. He would be seriously injured or even killed. At the same time that Yixing was ambushed by the figure hidden in the darkness, Feng Xiaoxiao was also ambushed by a dark figure. Feng Xiaoxiao was fighting against Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, 2 first-grade junior experts, alone. Although he was undefeated, it was still difficult for him. He was suddenly ambushed, and the attacker's strength was not inferior to Xing Liuyang's. Naturally, he was caught off guard. In his haste, Feng Xiaoxiao could only protect his vitals. The dark figure struck him in the back. Puff! Feng Xiaoxiao spat out a mouthful of blood. His profound rank protective inner armor had blocked most of the attack for him. However, the attacker was too strong. He was still injured quite badly. As Feng Xiaoxiao was sent flying, he waved the clear breeze sword in his hand. Sword energy flowed out like a river, protecting his back. He shouted angrily, "Xian Yifeng, how dare you ambush me?" Xian Yifeng was a 3-star venerable. He was a genius disciple of the Dark Yin Palace. His strength was among the first-grade junior experts. Feng Xiaoxiao followed the momentum of Xian Yifeng's attack. His figure swept across the ground like a gust of wind, instantly arriving beside Yixing. His powerful sword aura enveloped Yixing. A sinister laugh resounded. The black qi around the dark figure dissipated, revealing his true appearance. He looked very young, not even 20 years old. This person was the Dark Yin Palace's disciple, Xian Yifeng. He was 24 years old this year, and his cultivation base was at the 3rd level of the astral reaching realm. He was a 4-star venerable, comparable to Xing Liang. Xian Yifeng held a black dagger in his hand. He had used this dagger to stab Feng Xiaoxiao in the back. Even now, Feng Xiaoxiao could still feel the pain from the stab. The opponent's strength had penetrated into his body, destroying it. Xian Yifeng laughed and said, "Feng Xiaoxiao, why wouldn't I dare? Do you think you can still escape today? No matter how high your talent is, from today onwards, you'll be a dead man. What's there to fear?" At this moment, another dark figure walked over from the entrance of the canyon. The black qi dissipated, revealing a young man in black. Based on his attire, he was also a disciple of the Dark Yin Palace. "The one who injured you is a disciple of the Dark Yin Palace, Yunchuan. He's a 2-star venerable. His strength is in the 2nd grade. The Dark Yin Palace specializes in assassination. You're lucky to have survived his ambush." Feng Xiaoxiao transmitted her voice to Yi Xing, introducing the identity of the person who had injured Yi Xing. Yi Xing's gaze was like a blade as he looked at Yi Yunchuan. Ever since he had crossed over to the Star Continent and stepped onto the martial path, there were very few people who could injure him. This Yi Yunchuan was one of them. Yi Xing's gaze was filled with killing intent towards Yi Yunchuan. Yi Yunchuan met Yi Xing's gaze and laughed. A country bumpkin from a low-level continent can actually survive my attack. It seems like your luck is not small. However, you can dodge my attack once. Can you dodge it a second or third time? Don't look at me so fiercely. Today, you're going to die. On the other side of the canyon, a young man in black also appeared. He was shrouded in darkness and had a cold smile on his face. It turned out that the people who had come were not only disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace. The disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace were in the open while the disciples of the Darkeen Palace were in the dark. They had sealed off the entire canyon. What should we do, Brother Feng? Yi Xing transmitted his voice to Feng Xiaoxiao. The other party had a martial artist who was proficient in the power of darkness. Even if he used the black hole to create life, he would not be able to escape. Don't panic. I have a way to escape. I didn't die just now, so I won't die now. Feng Xiaoxiao replied. Chapter 603. Feng Xiaoxiao was, after all, a genius disciple of a 4-star power. She had a life-saving trump card, which was obviously not something Yi Xing could compare to. Her foundation was much deeper than Yi Xing's. Hearing Feng Xiaoxiao's words, Yi Xing's heart calmed down. Although this was the first time he had met Feng Xiaoxiao, she was a trustworthy person. Yi Xing believed her words. Feng Xiaoxiao, you were able to fight me and Xing Luyang alone. You are indeed the strongest among those in the first tier. However, with the addition of Xian Yefeng, the 3 of us will fight you alone. Do you have any chance of survival? Ha! Xing Liuyu laughed heartily. He was in a very good mood. In the starry crescent land, geniuses were everywhere among the disciples of the 7 4-star powers. Any one of them had the strength to sweep through the same realm as an ordinary martial artist. There were even a lot of geniuses who could challenge those with higher realms. Some outstanding elite disciples could even kill ordinary venerables when they reached the astral reaching realm. However, there were not many astral reaching realm experts who could challenge those with higher realms than them. Those who could kill those with higher realms than them were even rarer. Xing Liuyu was only a 2-star venerable, but his strength was enough to sweep through ordinary 4-star venerables. Even in the entire starry crescent land, he was a famous genius. In a normal era, a genius like Xing Liuyu could lead an era and sweep through his peers. He was the first person in the starry crescent land in the last 100 years, or even several hundred years. Unfortunately, he was born in the same generation as Feng Xiaoxiao. His brilliance had been completely overshadowed by Feng Xiaoxiao, the up-and-coming star. Feng Xiaoxiao was 2 years younger than Xing Liuyu, but aside from the fact that her cultivation was 1 level lower, she had already surpassed him in every other aspect. For a narrow-minded genius like Xing Liuyu, this was almost unbearable. Xing Liuyu hated Feng Xiaoxiao to the bone. Ever since Feng Xiaoxiao's fame had risen in the starry crescent land, Xing Liuyu had wanted to kill her. Now, it was finally time to kill Feng Xiaoxiao. Naturally, Xing Liuyu was overjoyed. Xing Liuyu, Xing Luyang and Xian Yifeng, the 3 first-rate geniuses of the younger generation, surrounded Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao. Linghu Feiyang, Yi Yunchuan and the others stood behind the 3 of them, leaving Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao with nowhere to run. Feng Xiaoxiao, don't blame me, Xin Yifeng. You only have yourself to blame. Who told you to have a 2-star blue fate? If you were allowed to grow, the Big Dipper Sword sect would rule the starry crescent land. Then, there would be no room for other forces to speak. At that time, if you were to establish a dynasty that would unify the starry crescent land, we would all become its subjects and lose our freedom. So, you deserve to die. Xian Yefeng's voice was sinister as he glared at Feng Xiaoxiao and gritted his teeth. In the starry crescent land, the 4-star forces kept each other in check. Even if one or two forces were outstanding, they did not have the ability to conquer the other forces. However, if a second Nirvana quasi-god appeared in the starry crescent land, the balance would be completely broken. Especially if a second Nirvana quasi-god was proficient in combat. He could almost sweep the entire starry crescent land and establish a dynasty. This was because the hidden experts of the four-star forces were only first Nirvana quasi-gods. Moreover, each force only had one or two of them. In the history of the starry crescent land, there had been a two-star blue fate expert called Xianxia. When he grew up, he was invincible and swept across the entire starry crescent land. That was 100,000 years ago. In the end, Xianxia established a dynasty and named it the Starry Moon Dynasty. Thus, the land was renamed the Starry Crescent Land. Once the dynasty was established, it would unify the land. The resources of the entire Starry Crescent Land would belong to the dynasty first. Then, the power represented by the dynasty would become stronger and stronger. Without any changes, it would be almost impossible to destroy. After the second Nirvana quasi-god, Xianxia, passed away, the Starry Moon Dynasty continued to prosper. It gathered the resources of the entire land and produced many geniuses. The other forces could only look at its back. The Starry Moon Dynasty lasted for more than 88,000 years before it was exhausted and fell apart. The flames of war were everywhere in the Starry Crescent Land. The heroes fought each other and in the end, the four-star forces shared the land. It had been more than 10,000 years since then. The lifespan of a king was only 1,000 years. The establishment of a dynasty could last for tens of thousands of years. The experts of the Starry Crescent Land did not want a new dynasty to appear. Feng Xiaoxiao had a two-star blue fate, which was a heaven-defying cultivation talent. Moreover, she also had a heaven-defying combat ability. Naturally, many people wanted to get rid of her. When Feng Xiaoxiao heard Xianxia's words, she narrowed her eyes and shot out a terrifying light. She said, "Who said that I have a two-star blue fate?" The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. Everyone knew this. Ordinary geniuses did not matter. However, the most talented one would definitely be killed easily. Therefore, Feng Xiaoxiao's destiny was a secret of the Big Dipper Sword sect. The news was strictly sealed and could not be leaked. Only the upper echelons of the Big Dipper Sword sect knew about Feng Xiaoxiao's destiny. Xianxia actually knew about Feng Xiaoxiao's destiny. Didn't this mean that someone in the upper echelons of the Big Dipper Sword sect deliberately leaked the news to kill Feng Xiaoxiao? Xianxia sneered and said, "You're about to die. So what if you know the answer? Besides, you should know that the news could only have come from the Big Dipper Sword sect. Otherwise, who would know that the Big Dipper Sword sect has produced the #1 genius of the Starry Crescent Land in 100,000 years, but someone in the upper echelons wants to kill him? Haha." Feng Xiaoxiao's expression was calm as she said, "I, Feng Xiaoxiao, only want to pursue the martial way. One day, I will head to a high-class land and break through to a higher realm. I have no interest in establishing a dynasty." Before Feng Xiaoxiao could finish, she was interrupted by Xianxia. "Feng Xiaoxiao, what's the point of saying all this now? I don't care if you're interested or not. Today, there's no way out for you. There's only death for you." Xing Liang, Xing Liuyu, and the others laughed coldly as well. Their eyes were filled with murderous intent. Feng Xiaoxiao's gaze was as sharp as a sword as she stared at Xianxia. Then, she swept her gaze across the crowd and said, "Xianxia, what I'm trying to say is that I originally had no enmity with the Dark Moon Palace. Even if I were to become invincible in the Starry Crescent Land in the future, it would have nothing to do with the Dark Moon Palace. However, because of you, the Dark Moon Palace will be my mortal enemy from today onwards." Xing Liuyu, Xing Liang, and Xianxia were stunned. Feng Xiaoxiao's words made it sound as if she would survive and become the strongest person in the Starry Crescent Land in the future. How was that possible? Just as the three of them revealed disdainful smiles, Feng Xiaoxiao suddenly raised her hand and a yellow talisman appeared in her hand. Lesser space-breaching talisman? Xing Liuyu and the other two exclaimed in shock. Chapter 604. Just as the three of them cried out in alarm, Feng Xiaoxiao grabbed Yi Xing and crushed the space-breaching talisman in her hand. In an instant, the void was torn apart and a spatial vortex was formed. Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao were affected by the space-breaching talisman and were instantly sucked into the spatial vortex. The spatial vortex appeared quickly and disappeared just as quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao were nowhere to be seen. Damn it! He escaped. Xianxia was so anxious that he stomped his feet. As a disciple of the Big Dipper Sword sect, there weren't many opportunities for Feng Xiaoxiao to kill him. Feng Xiaoxiao had been trapped in this canyon and that was a great opportunity. However, he had managed to escape. How could Xianxia not be anxious? Feng Xiaoxiao was a 2-star blue life disciple and would definitely become a second Nirvana quasi-god in the future. It was fine if he had killed him, but now that he had escaped, he would definitely be injured in the future. Furthermore, it was not just Xianxia himself who would suffer. The entire Dark Yin Palace would be in trouble. This was because Xianxia killing Feng Xiaoxiao was the idea of the higher-ups of the Dark Yin Palace. Xianxia was burning with anxiety. Xing Liang and Xing Liuyu were the same. Since they had made a move, there were only two outcomes. They would either kill Feng Xiaoxiao or be killed by Feng Xiaoxiao in the future. After a short period of irritation, Xing Liuyu's eyes lit up and he said, "Feng Xiaoxiao is with that country bumpkin from the lower continent. That country bumpkin killed a disciple of my celestial elephant palace. We can sense his location. Let's go, let's find that country bumpkin. Feng Xiaoxiao cannot possibly have two space-breaching talismans. If we find him again, he will definitely die." Xianxia eyes flashed and he said, "Let's go. We'll find him soon." In the extraterritorial starland, somewhere in the void, there was a sudden tear and a spatial vortex appeared. Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao emerged from the spatial vortex. Immediately, the spatial vortex disappeared and the void returned to normal. Yi Xing looked around. They were in a wide open area. The surrounding area was flat and there were no trees in sight. They were no longer in the forest of nowhere. Where is this place? Yi Xing scanned the surroundings and asked. Luckily, I have a small space-breaking spell. Otherwise, I would have been in danger today. Feng Xiaoxiao muttered to herself. However, when she heard Yi Xing's words, she scanned her surroundings and said, "This is the Divine Dragon Plains, located north of the Undirectional Forest. Small space-breaching talisman? Is it the yellow talisman that you took out earlier that allowed us to travel through the void?" Yi Xing exclaimed. Feng Xiaoxiao nodded with a pained expression. What a treasure! With a small space-breaking spell in hand, no matter how dangerous it is, it will not be dangerous, Yi Xing exclaimed. This was the first time he had seen a treasure that could allow him to travel through the void in an instant. That's easy for you to say. This space-breaching charm can only be made by a quasi-god who has mastered the true meaning of space. No one in the entire starry crescent land can make it. It can only be found in the ancient ruins. It's a treasure that can only be found by chance. Even among the 7 strongest forces, not every one of them has a space-breaching charm. The Big Dipper Sword sect only has one and it was given to me by the sect leader. If I use it now, I won't be able to escape from a deadly situation in the future. If I die in a dangerous situation, I won't be able to escape in the future. Feng Xiaoxiao sighed again and again. It was as if she had lost a piece of her heart. So it was such an important treasure. Yi Xing's expression changed. He cupped his fists and bowed to Feng Xiaoxiao. Brother Feng, thank you for using such a treasure to save us. I can't thank you enough. I was going to use it to escape anyway. You just took it with you and didn't use it for you. There's no need to thank me. Feng Xiaoxiao waved her hand and said, even though we've escaped to this place, it's still not safe. You've killed a disciple of the Celestial Elephant Palace. They'll sense your presence and find you sooner or later. The only thing I can do for you is to help you escape for the time being. They'll definitely come looking for me through you. We can't be together anymore. We'll have to go our separate ways. Yi Xing frowned. The fact that the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace could sense his location was a huge problem. As long as he was in the extraterritorial Starland, he would not be able to escape the pursuit of the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace. Although using the black hole astrology and the dark force to conceal his presence would make it difficult for the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace to sense his presence, this method could only help him hide for a while. Yi Xing had concealed his presence. Perhaps the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace would not be able to sense his exact location. However, that did not mean that they would not be able to sense his general location. Yi Xing could not constantly use the dark force. As long as they were within a certain range, it was only a matter of time before they found him. Yi Xing said, "Brother Feng, may I ask if there is any way to avoid the pursuit of the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace?" Yi Xing did not know much about the extraterritorial Starland and the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace. He could only ask Feng Xiaoxiao for advice. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "If you want to avoid the detection of the disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace, you have to escape from their detection range." However, the extraterritorial Starland is not big enough. This method will not work. Secondly, you have to kill everyone who is chasing after you. This is obviously not going to work either, so there is only one way left. Yi Xing held his breath and said, "What is it?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Go to a place that they do not dare to go." The reason why the Divine Dragon Plains is called the Divine Dragon Plains is because in the depths of the plains, there is an ancient ruin called the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. The so-called Forbidden Land means that it is an extremely dangerous place. That place is densely covered with terrifying formations and restrictions. Moreover, it is said that someone once saw a divine dragon roaming about in the Forbidden Land. Therefore, it is called the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. My Big Dipper Sword sect has explored the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land for generations. However, because the formations and restrictions inside are too powerful, we are unable to go deep into it. However, we have managed to figure out some of the restrictions on the periphery. As she spoke, Feng Xiaoxiao raised her hand and took out a map. She then passed it to Yi Xing. "This is the map of the periphery of the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. If you follow the route on the map and enter, it will be relatively safe. The disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace know that you are hiding in the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. They might not dare to enter to look for you. This way, you might be able to escape this calamity. However, if they really take the risk to enter the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land to look for you, then it will depend on your safety. It will depend on your luck." Yi Xing took the map of the periphery of the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land and said, "Thank you, Brother Feng. If I manage to survive this calamity, I will definitely repay your kindness if we meet again in the future." Feng Xiaoxiao said, "What I did was as easy as lifting a finger. You don't have to take it to heart. If I were a great sage, I wouldn't have allowed you to go to the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. I would have brought you along to escape with me." Ha! Feng Xiaoxiao smiled and patted Yi Xing on the shoulder. She said, "I wish you good luck and live well. With your potential, as long as you do not die, there will be no place for you in the inferior continents in the future. There will be a day when you will have to go to the Starry Crescent Land." Chapter 605. Flight was allowed on the Divine Dragon Plains, so Yi Xing soon arrived at the forbidden Divine Dragon grounds in the depths of the plains. In front of Yi Xing were ruins and broken walls. It was a barren land, and not a single blade of grass grew. In this ruined land, the void was filled with killing intent. This was the aura of a formation. This endless ruined land was shrouded in a powerful and terrifying formation. The power it contained was enough to make one's heart palpitate. In the depths of this ruined land, there were mountain peaks and halls. One could faintly see the silhouette of a dragon swimming in the depths, shuttling back and forth between the mountain peaks and halls. The forbidden Divine Dragon grounds. Could there really be a divine dragon? Yi Xing thought to himself. Even in the Star Continent, there were legends of dragons. However, the dragons in the Star Continent were usually flood dragons and not real divine dragons. The word divine in a divine dragon was enough to prove that it was extraordinary. Even the kings of the martial way could not compare to it. Only experts who had become quasi-gods, who also had the word divine, could be mentioned in the same breath as a divine dragon. If there really was a divine dragon in the forbidden divine dragon grounds, and Yi Xing entered the forbidden divine dragon grounds, the divine dragon might be able to kill Yi Xing in an instant with just a breath from the depths of the forbidden divine dragon grounds. There are divine dragons in the forbidden divine dragon grounds. This is just a rumor. Although it's dangerous to enter the forbidden divine dragon grounds, as long as I don't go too deep, I can still come out. The disciples of the Celestial Elephant Palace can sense my location, and it won't be long before they come after me. Apart from the forbidden divine dragon grounds, I really don't have any other way to shake them off. Yi Xing thought to himself as he strode forward and entered the forbidden divine dragon grounds. Yi Xing was already familiar with the map of the forbidden divine dragon grounds. He had memorized it in his superbrain, so Yi Xing knew which places were the safest. Moreover, Yi Xing activated his superbrain to scan and could see whether the formations in front of him were real or fake. Although he could not break these formations, he could avoid the dangers within them. In truth, if Yi Xing used his superbrain to scan the forbidden divine dragon land, it would be much safer than using the map Feng Xiaoxiao had given him. Feng Xiaoxiao's map had been created by the Big Dipper Sword sect's disciples who had entered the foreign starland. Many of them had lost their lives in the divine dragon forbidden land because of this. They had used their lives to explore the map. However, with Yi Xing's superbrain scan, he could directly identify the dangers in the formation. This was something that other martial artists could not compare to. No matter how many martial artists fumbled around blindly, even if they used their lives to fill in the gaps, they could not compare to Yi Xing's superbrain scan. Yi Xing could see that although the formations and restrictions of the Forbidden Land were powerful, there were many damaged areas. That was why there were so many safe areas. If the formations and restrictions were in good condition, there would be danger everywhere. Even if he used his superbrain to scan the area, it would be difficult for him to move around in the Forbidden Land. Yi Xing followed the safe route on the map until he reached the end marked on the map. At this time, Yi Xing had already entered the Forbidden Land of the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land. Not far in front of Yi Xing was a mountain peak. Beside the mountain peak was the roof of a palace. However, between him, the mountain peak, and the palace hall, the void was filled with dense formations and restrictions that were filled with killing intent. The formations and restrictions here were more complete. The aura they revealed was like a sharp blade, causing one's heart to turn cold. The real Forbidden Land is up ahead. I'm afraid that even a king would die if he entered, Yi Xing thought to himself. He used his superbrain to scan and carefully observe the formations and restrictions in front of him. However, he could only find a few flaws. Moreover, these flaws were not due to the inadequacy of the formations and restrictions. Instead, it was unknown whether it was due to the passage of time or because it had been damaged. These damaged areas were not connected. Therefore, it was impossible to reach the mountain peak or the palace behind the mountain peak through these damaged areas. Moreover, these damaged areas were very small. From time to time, the power of the formations would penetrate through and produce frightening attacks. It would be very dangerous to enter. If Yi Xing did not have the superbrain to scan and see the hidden dangers, he would definitely die if he entered recklessly. Even if Yi Xing entered and had the superbrain scan, he could not guarantee that he would survive. Let's stop here. It's too dangerous up ahead. I hope the people from the Star Elephant Palace won't come in. Yi Xing thought to himself and gave up on the idea of going forward. After a while, Yi Xing calmed down his thoughts and sat on the ground. He began to cultivate the low-grade profound realm falling star incantation. He had gained enough in this outer realm starland. In order to avoid being chased by the people from the Star Elephant Palace, Yi Xing decided not to go out until he left this place. He would cultivate in seclusion and strive to break through the astral-reaching realm as soon as possible and become a venerable. One day later, outside the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land, where Yi Xing had stopped before, Xing Liuyu, Xing Luyang, Xian Yefeng, and the other disciples of the Star Elephant Palace and Dark Moon Palace had all arrived. They could not track Feng Xiaoxiao, so they could only track Yi Xing to find her whereabouts. Xing Liang looked at the divine dragon forbidden land before him and clenched his fists. His veins were bulging as he roared furiously, "Damn it! This kid actually entered the divine dragon forbidden land. This must be Feng Xiaoxiao's idea. Damn it!" Xing Liuyu squinted his eyes. His gaze was deep as he looked at the depths of the divine dragon forbidden land. Killing intent leaked out from his eyes. Clearly, he would not rest until he killed Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao. Xian Yefeng looked at the divine dragon forbidden land with a worried expression. "What should we do? The divine dragon forbidden land is very dangerous. They are hiding inside. Should we go in?" Xing Luyang punched the ground. The force of his fist punched a large hole in the ground as he roared, "Why should we go in? They are courting death. Are we going to accompany them in death?" Xing Luyang valued his life very much. If he had to risk his life in order to kill Yi Xing and Feng Xiaoxiao, he would rather not. "If we don't kill Feng Xiaoxiao, sooner or later, we will die at her hands." Xing Liuyu spoke. "Moreover, the outer perimeter of the divine dragon forbidden land is not that dangerous. We have the map of the outer perimeter of the divine dragon forbidden land passed down by our sections. As long as we are careful and don't venture too deep, unless we are extremely unlucky, our lives will not be in danger. That country bumpkin and Feng Xiaoxiao will definitely not hide in the true forbidden land. I think they are also in the outer perimeter. We can sense that country bumpkin's location. We will definitely be able to find them once we enter." Xian Yefeng clenched his fists and made up his mind. "That's right. If you want to kill a snake, you have to kill it. If you want to cut the grass, you have to remove the roots. Since we have already made our move, we must kill them all in one go. Today, even if I have to risk my life, I will kill Feng Xiaoxiao." Xing Liuyu and Xian Yefeng exchanged glances and nodded. Their eyes were filled with determination. Since the two of them had made their decision, the other disciples of the Star Elephant Palace and Dark Yin Palace naturally had no objections. Everyone took out the map passed down by their sects and headed towards the divine dragon forbidden land. Chapter 606. In the divine dragon forbidden land. Yi Xing, who was cultivating the falling star incantation, suddenly opened his eyes. "They've come after all." Yi Xing's eyes shone brightly. In order to prevent the disciples of Star Elephant Palace and Dark Moon Palace from catching up, Yi Xing had set up some surveillance formations along the way. No matter what the surveillance formations were monitoring or if they were destroyed, as the formation master, Yi Xing could sense it immediately. Not long after, two figures hidden in the darkness appeared in front of Yi Xing. Yi Xing scanned them with his super brain and saw them clearly. Although many disciples of Star Elephant Palace and Dark Moon Palace had come, they still decided to launch a sneak attack. Therefore, Xian Yefeng and Yunchuan were the first to sneak up. "Xian Yefeng, Yunchuan," Yi Xing said coldly as he stared at the two of them. Xian Yefeng and Yi Yunchuan revealed themselves. Their expressions were filled with surprise. They were surprised that Yi Xing could actually see their figures. "Kid, are you the only one here? Where did Feng Xiaoxiao go?" Xian Yefeng shouted. His target was Feng Xiaoxiao. As for Yi Xing's life or death, that was the concern of Star Elephant Palace. The Dark Moon Palace had only attacked in passing. "You guys are really haunting me," Yi Xing said coldly as he looked at the disciples of Star Elephant Palace behind him. Xing Liuyu, Xing Luyang, and the other disciples of Star Elephant Palace walked forward. When they saw that Feng Xiaoxiao was not here, they were furious. Xing Luyang shouted, "Where is Feng Xiaoxiao?" Xing Luyang was extremely unwilling to enter the divine dragon forbidden land. However, Xing Liuyu and Xian Yefeng insisted on coming in to eliminate any future troubles. In order to kill Feng Xiaoxiao, Xing Luyang could only brace himself and enter. This was because Feng Xiaoxiao was too powerful. If the three of them did not join forces, they were not confident that they could kill Feng Xiaoxiao. In the end, after entering the divine dragon forbidden area, he did not see Feng Xiaoxiao at all. Xing Liang felt that he had taken such a huge risk for nothing, and the anger in his heart immediately rose. Yi Xing's gaze swept across everyone's faces and sneered, "Brother Feng isn't with me, how would I know where he is? You guys won't be able to find Brother Feng. Just wait for Brother Feng to take your lives in the future." Xing Liuyu stepped forward and said coldly, "What's so funny about you? No matter what, you will die here today." This was already the end of the Divine Dragon Forbidden Lands safe zone. Any further in and it would be the true Forbidden Zone. Entering there would mean certain death. Xing Liuyu did not believe that Yi Xing also had a lesser space-breaking talisman. Therefore, in his eyes, Yi Xing was already a dead man. Yi Xing had already been forced into a corner. Other than rushing into the Forbidden Zone and escaping, there was no other way. Yi Xing's eyes revealed a sharp murderous intent as he said, "Remember this. As long as I, Yi Xing, survive this ordeal, I will definitely head to the Starry Crescent Land in the future. If you don't die at the hands of Feng Xiaoxiao, you will die at the hands of Yi Xing. You still want to survive this ordeal? I will tear you into pieces right now." Xing Luyang roared furiously. The ardent flame's spear instantly appeared in his hand and he pointed it at Yi Xing. Although he did not use his astrology, Xing Liuyang's spear attack was more terrifying than a full-force attack from a 3-star venerable. Naturally, Yi Xing would not exchange blows with Xing Liang. Just as Xing Liang attacked with his spear, Yi Xing used his shadow steps. His body split into two and he rushed into the Forbidden Zone. Yi Xing was well aware of the few damaged areas in the Forbidden Zone. Naturally, he rushed in without triggering the array's attack. Entering the Forbidden Zone meant certain death. This was the consensus of the Starry Crescent Land cultivators. Unexpectedly, Yi Xing had rushed into the Forbidden Zone. However, Yi Xing would die if he stayed behind. Rushing into the Forbidden Zone would also result in death. It was reasonable that he would be frightened into entering the Forbidden Zone by Xing Liuyang's attack. However, what shocked the cultivators present was that Yi Xing had not been killed by the array's restrictions after entering the Forbidden Zone. "Remember my words. One day, we will meet again," Yi Xing said coldly as he stood in the Forbidden Zone. The distance between the two parties was not far. However, Yi Xing stood in the Forbidden Zone. The disciples of Xingxiang Palace and Dark Moon Palace felt as if they were in two different dimensions. It was as if they were extremely far away. Looking at Yi Xing, the cultivators were filled with murderous intent. However, they did not dare to take a single step into the Forbidden Zone. "I will destroy him from a distance." In the end, it was the hot-tempered Xing Luyang who roared and used his astrology. He did not dare to step into the Forbidden Zone to kill Yi Xing. However, he was powerful enough to kill Yi Xing even from a distance. At this moment, Yi Xing's expression suddenly changed. Xing Liuyu also pulled Xing Liang back and said, "Don't be so agitated." Whoosh 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 whoosh. All of a sudden, the space near where Yi Xing was standing was filled with numerous wind blades. The aura of these wind blades made everyone's hair stand on end. If they were hit, they would definitely be smashed into pieces. This was a terrifying attack that even a king would not be able to withstand. At the same time, Yi Xing's expression changed, and he used the afterimage footwork. At this moment, he used the afterimage footwork to the limit, and also used the grand force of wind to the limit. His body gathered a dense amount of wind yuan qi, and his speed reached an extraordinary state, dodging the attack of the wind blades. The Forbidden Zone was different from the outer perimeter. There was no place that was absolutely safe. Even if it was a relatively safe area, there was no telling when danger would come. At this moment, Yi Xing did not care so much. His super brain was operating to the limit, scanning the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, countless calculations had been made. He calculated the next safe place to land and moved in the Forbidden Zone. Every time he stepped on the ground, he would trigger a reaction from the formation. In less than 3 breaths of time, an attack would be launched. Therefore, Yi Xing did not have much time to think at all. At most, in 1 or 2 breaths of time, he would have to move again. In one dangerous situation after another, Yi Xing's figure moved deeper and deeper into the Forbidden Zone. The disciples of Xinxiang Palace and Dark Moon Palace outside the Forbidden Zone were all dumbfounded when they saw Yi Xing's figure move deeper into the Forbidden Zone. Although Yi Xing's every step was dangerous, he did not suffer any real injuries. He actually moved so deep into the Forbidden Zone. This was unbelievable. What they did not know was that in this short period of time, Yi Xing's usage of the superbrain had surpassed the sum of his usage in the past few years. Under the threat of death, Yi Xing's potential had completely erupted. Smoke was coming out of his brain as it spun rapidly. In this short period of time, whether it was Yi Xing's control of his body or his analysis and reaction to formations, Yi Xing had improved rapidly. We will meet again. Yi Xing's figure had already disappeared from the sight of the disciples of Xinxiang Palace and Dark Moon Palace, but Yi Xing's voice still came from the depths of the Divine Dragon Forbidden Zone. Chapter 607. Yi Xing moved forward without any time to rest. Wherever he went, the formations would be triggered. Only by moving forward could he survive. Moreover, even if he wanted to move forward, he couldn't just blindly walk around. He had to go to a relatively safe place to ensure that he wouldn't be killed instantly. Therefore, Yi Xing's superbrain was working to the limit at all times, calculating the possible path to survival. Even if his brain was smoking, he couldn't stop. In the Forbidden Zone, the broken and weak points of the formations weren't in a straight line. Yi Xing had to constantly change his direction. Therefore, in terms of the distance in a straight line, Yi Xing wasn't moving very fast. Under the superbrain's intense movements, Yi Xing's 7 orifices fumed. Soon he felt dizzy, but he didn't collapse. The desire to survive made him instinctively move the superbrain, choosing a relatively safe path to advance. He was no longer controlled by his thoughts. Until Yi Xing completely fainted and lost consciousness. Outside the Forbidden Zone, the disciples of Xinxiang Palace and Dark Moon Palace wore gloomy expressions. Yi Xing had entered the depths of the Forbidden Zone, and Feng Xiaoxiao's whereabouts were unknown. This caused Xingliu, Xianxia, and the others to lose their target. Although they didn't know whether Yi Xing was dead or alive, Xingliu and the others weren't willing to risk waiting in the Divine Dragon Forbidden Zone. They could only reluctantly leave. There were many treasures in the extraterrestrial starry sky, waiting for cultivators to explore. They couldn't wait here forever and waste their time. That country bumpkin won't live for long. Let's not bother with him anymore. The most important thing is to find Feng Xiaoxiao. If we can't kill him while he's in the extraterritorial starland, the Big Dipper Sword sect will definitely protect Feng Xiaoxiao when we return to the starry crescent land. It will be difficult to kill him then. If Feng Xiaoxiao becomes someone powerful in the future, we will definitely be harmed. Xingliu said. Xingliu, Xianxia, and the others nodded in agreement. Xianxia said, if Feng Xiaoxiao wants to hide, the chances of finding him will be very slim. However, when the Outer Realm Star Continent closes, everyone will be transported to the Black Tortoise Jade Wall. We can kill him there. Xingliu nodded, a trace of worry flashing through his eyes as he said, Feng Xiaoxiao is only 21 years old, and is still rapidly advancing. Although his cultivation base has reached the astral reaching realm, and each advancement is extremely difficult, there are still 5 months before the outer region closes. I'm afraid that his cultivation base will have already reached the 2nd level of astral reaching realm. Then, it will be difficult to deal with him. Xianxia eyes narrowed as he said, then we should move around more during this period and see if we can come across any fortuitous encounters that can allow our cultivation to rise to the next level. Furthermore, we can contact the disciples of the Demon's Sealing Valley. I believe that the Demon's Sealing Valley does not wish for Feng Xiaoxiao to grow stronger. With the Demon's Sealing Valley's great sealing technique, even if Feng Xiaoxiao becomes a 2-star venerable, she will not be a threat. Xingliu and Xianxia looked at each other and nodded. The Demon's Sealing Valley was one of the 2 strongest powers of the Star Moon continent. Moreover, there was also a first-grade expert among the disciples of the Demon's Sealing Valley. If they joined hands, no matter how powerful Feng Xiaoxiao was, it would be difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. The godly dragon Forbidden Land was a place that the martial artists of the Star Moon continent had explored and tested for countless years. Eventually, it was determined to be a dangerous place with no harvest, and was classified as one of the Forbidden Lands. After the disciples of the Star Elephant Palace and the Dark Moon Palace left, the godly dragon Forbidden Land returned to its former tranquility. Only the unconscious Yi Xing remained in the depths of the Forbidden Land. After 3 full days, Yi Xing finally woke up. As soon as he woke up, Yi Xing immediately sat up and looked around vigilantly, activating the superbrain's scanning function. What entered his eyes were 2 golden doors. Yi Xing's heart shook as he realized that he was already in front of a huge palace. In front of the doors, there was a safe zone. When Yi Xing's consciousness fell unconscious, the superbrain instinctively operated and controlled his body to come here. Only then did Yi Xing collapse. Yi Xing suddenly cried out in surprise. He realized that the calculation ability of his brain was much faster than before. Even the objects he scanned were more detailed. The time it took Yi Xing to analyze the formations and restrictions in front of him was more than 10 times faster than before. He could see the flaws and weak points at first glance. Moreover, the structure of the formations and restrictions could be clearly scanned by the superbrain. The superbrain seems to have been strengthened. Did it level up? Did it evolve? Yi Xing cried out in surprise. No matter what, Yi Xing was happy. This was a blessing in disguise. It was a good thing. What could be in this palace? Yi Xing stood up and looked at the 2 doors in front of him. The superbrain had already analyzed the formations and restrictions that covered the doors. Perhaps it was because too much time had passed, but the formations and restrictions on the doors were already damaged. Otherwise, even if Yi Xing could analyze the structure of the formations and restrictions, there was nothing he could do. Whoosh! A beam of starlight shot into the sky. Yi Xing used the fire astrology, and the golden rock spear instantly appeared in his hand. The astral energy circulated, and the power of heaven and earth surged. It stirred up the primal chi of heaven and earth. Yi Xing unleashed his full strength. Like an unlucky flame, he thrust his spear with the strongest attack and attacked the broken part of the formation. Boom! There was a deafening explosion. Yi Xing's hand that held the spear went numb. A terrifying force bounced back, but the 2 doors did not budge at all. Although the formations and restrictions were damaged, it was not that easy to destroy them. Yi Xing was only able to break through because he could see where the restrictions were broken. Otherwise, even if a supremacy attacked directly, he wouldn't be able to shake the 2 doors at all. Through the superbrain scan, Yi Xing could see that the damaged parts of the formations and restrictions on the doors had become bigger. His terrifying aura continued to erupt as he attacked with the strongest spear. Boom! 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 Yi Xing attacked with his spear again and again. Every time he attacked the same spot, the broken parts of the formations and restrictions were constantly magnified. After more than 100 attacks, Yi Xing finally tore apart the defensive formation on the door. The door creaked and opened to both sides. It's finally open. Yi Xing was overjoyed. He looked into the hall and scanned everything inside with his superbrain. The hall was very spacious and there was no danger. Yi Xing walked in. It was a square hall that was about 10 feet in length, width, and height. The walls on both sides were engraved with patterns. Most of the patterns were in the shape of humans. Some of them were in the shape of dragons. However, even if they were in the shape of humans, they were dragonians covered in scales. The human figures in the patterns had different movements. Yi Xing looked at them for a while and understood. These patterns seemed to be martial arts moves. Chapter 608. The moves on the wall were not exquisite. In fact, they were very ordinary. Yi Xing tried to learn 2 moves, but he did not find anything special about them. They were not even spiritual martial arts. They could only be considered as ordinary martial arts. This made Yi Xing feel very surprised. The martial arts recorded on the walls of the Forbidden Divine Dragon Grounds were only at the level of ordinary martial arts? This should not be the case. Yixing shifted his gaze and observed the pictures on the other wall. Although the moves in the pictures were different, they were all very ordinary. Even supremacies do not have the strength to enter this place. This forbidden divine dragon palace should be of a very high level. It's impossible to carve ordinary martial arts on the walls. These moves are very ordinary. Could it be that they need a special heart technique to be powerful? Yixing guessed as he looked into the depths of the palace. There was a stone table under the opposite wall. About 3 feet above the stone table, there was a fist-sized ball of red blood floating in the air. Yixing scanned the blood and found that there were shadows of dragons moving around in the blood. This can't be dragon blood, right? Yixing was surprised. Yixing walked forward. When he was about 10 meters away from the stone table, a wall appeared in the air and blocked his path. There was a hidden formation here. Even Yixing's superbrain could not detect it. The power of the formation projected a line of words on the wall behind him. Learn the martial arts of the Dragon Clan and you can obtain the essence of the Dragon Clan's blood. The pictures on the wall were of the Dragon Clan's martial arts. Perhaps only the Dragon Clan's martial arts would be powerful. No wonder Yixing felt that the martial arts were very ordinary. It was not cultivated by humans. Yixing's superbrain scanned the area in front of him and found that the formation was very complete. He could not force his way forward to obtain the essence of the Dragon Clan's blood. It seems that the only way to obtain the essence of the Dragon Clan's blood is to master the martial arts on the 2 walls. Yixing thought. He retreated and continued to look at the pictures on the wall. He memorized each move in his superbrain. Soon, the martial techniques on the 2 walls were imprinted in Yixing's mind, never to be seen again. However, imprinting it in one's mind was one thing, and practicing it in one's body was another. Because it was the martial arts of the dragon race, it was not suitable for humans to practice. For humans, these moves were not only strange, but also very disjointed. Each move seemed to be separate and independent. It was not a problem for Yixing to practice them separately, but it was extremely difficult to practice them consecutively. Yixing first separated the moves one by one and practiced them one by one. Very soon he was familiar with the moves. Then he gave it a try to see if he could enter the array formation and obtain the divine dragon blood essence. As soon as Yixing entered the array formation, a wall appeared out of thin air. A terrifying pushing force attacked him. Yixing immediately used the first move he had learned from the stone wall. Although this move did not have any power, it offset the pushing force from the array formation. However, before Yixing could move forward, another terrifying pushing force attacked him. Yixing wanted to change his move, but the changes between the moves were unfamiliar. Before Yixing could change his move, he was blasted out. It seems that I have to practice these moves consecutively and then perform the complete move from the beginning to the end. Only then can I pass through the array formation and obtain the divine dragon blood essence. Yixing thought to himself. He calmed down and continued to practice the martial arts of the Dragon Clan. The moves were not connected? One word, practice. The changes in the moves were unfamiliar? One word, practice. Yixing first simulated the moves in his mind. First, he let his consciousness connect the moves. Then, Yixing carried out practical practice to allow his body to connect with these moves. With the connection of his consciousness, Yixing's practice was naturally twice the result with half the effort. In just 2 days, Yixing had completely mastered this set of martial arts of the Dragon Clan and could perform it smoothly. If others were to practice it without the help of the superbrain, they would probably need more than 10 times the time, or even longer. Let's try again. Yixing once again walked toward the divine dragon blood essence. When he was 10 meters away, the array formation was immediately activated. A wall appeared out of thin air and blocked Yixing's advance. Yixing took a step forward and stepped into the wall of thin air. Immediately, a terrifying pushing force attacked him. Yixing immediately used the first move of the Dragon Clan's martial arts. The pushing force was immediately dispelled. Yixing took a step forward and a second pushing force attacked him. In an instant, Yixing's moves changed and smoothly used the second move. The pushing force was once again dispelled. Just like that, Yi Xing moved forward step by step and continuously used the moves of the Dragon Clan's martial arts to dispel the pushing force in the array formation. Not long after, he finally arrived in front of the stone table. After using the set of Dragon Clan's martial arts, the array formation around him disappeared and was completely dispelled. Yi Xing looked ahead. The divine dragon blood essence, floating in the air, was just inches away. What a surging power! Before coming into contact with the divine dragon blood essence, Yi Xing could already feel the power contained in it. Yi Xing reached out and grabbed the divine dragon blood essence. The moment the divine dragon blood essence touched Yi Xing's palm, it immediately seeped into Yi Xing's palm and fused into his flesh and blood. Before Yi Xing could understand what was going on, a sharp pain came from his palm that came into contact with the divine dragon blood essence. In an instant, dense scales grew on Yi Xing's palm. They were golden dragon scales that shone brightly. What's going on? Yi Xing was shocked. Although he was inexperienced, he had never heard of the divine dragon blood essence. He did not know what would happen if a human warrior came into contact with the divine dragon blood essence. However, the sharp pain from his palm and the dragon scales that grew were spreading to his arm. At that moment, Yi Xing knew that he had encountered a big problem. Will I become a demon? Yi Xing was shocked. When he thought about how he would become a dragon man in the future with golden scales all over his body, he was horrified. No, I must not become a demon. At that moment, a voice in his heart overcame the pain and fear, calming Yi Xing down instantly. He immediately sat down cross-legged and frantically circulated the mystic-class low-grade falling star art to refine and absorb the energy contained in the divine dragon blood essence. He did not let the divine dragon blood essence fuse into his body on its own accord. The divine dragon blood essence fused into Yi Xing's body on its own accord because the divine dragon blood essence was in a dominant position. After the complete transformation, Yi Xing would always be in a dragon man state. Yi Xing took the initiative to refine and absorb the divine dragon blood essence because he was in a dominant position. After absorbing the divine dragon blood essence, he could transform into a dragon man or a human as he wished. He was completely under Yi Xing's control. Therefore, although it seemed like the same thing, it was a completely different matter as to who was in a dominant position. The energy in the divine dragon blood essence was too overwhelming. Yi Xing circulated the falling star art but could not absorb it at all. The sharp pain on his arm continued and the dragon scales continued to grow. Black hole astrology. Yi Xing's mind moved and a beam of starlight shot into the sky. He immediately circulated the black hole astrology. Chapter 609. The black hole astral form hung high in the sky. The black hole whirlpool spun unceasingly, producing a huge devouring power that increased the speed of absorbing and refining the divine dragon essence blood. However, the power contained within the divine dragon essence blood was simply too overwhelming. This was divine blood. If the main part of the divine dragon essence blood was still alive, the divine blood would contain the owner's spirit and will. The power contained in this divine blood was enough to kill a king. Yi Xing wasn't even an astral reaching venerable. How could he absorb this divine dragon essence blood in such a short time? Therefore, the speed at which the divine dragon blood essence assimilated Yi Xing was very fast, but the speed at which Yi Xing refined and absorbed the divine dragon blood essence was much slower. Even though Yi Xing used the black hole astral form, it still couldn't compare to the assimilation speed of the divine dragon essence blood. The dragon scales on his arm were still spreading. However, the black hole astral form was extraordinary after all. It wasn't useless. At least, Yi Xing's black hole astral form greatly slowed down the assimilation speed of the divine dragon essence blood, buying time. If Yi Xing was assimilated by the divine dragon essence blood, not only would his body be unable to turn back into a human, even his spirit and consciousness would be assimilated. He would no longer be able to remember his past and would think that he was a true dragon man. In a sense, assimilation meant death for Yi Xing. From then on, he would no longer be himself. This was an outcome that Yixing absolutely couldn't accept. His desire to live made him desperately operate the falling star incantation and the black hole astral form, all for the sake of refining the divine dragon essence blood a little faster, a little faster. Time slowly passed. More and more dragon scales appeared on Yixing's arm, gradually spreading to his body. A day later, Yixing's entire arm was covered in golden dragon scales. He had completely transformed into a dragon, and the dragon scales were spreading to his body. Yixing had long since entered a selfless state. He was fully focused on operating the falling star incantation and the black hole astral form, maintaining the speed of refining and absorbing the divine dragon essence blood at the fastest speed. After a day, Yixing had already refined and absorbed quite a bit of divine dragon blood essence. This caused the assimilation speed of the divine dragon blood essence to slow down. However, Yixing absorbed very little of the total amount of divine dragon blood essence. The assimilation of the divine dragon blood essence to Yixing continued. Another 2 days passed, and the dragon scales had already spread from one shoulder to the other, and started to spread to the other arm. Furthermore, the dragon scales were still growing. They had already covered Yixing's neck, and they had already covered Yixing's chest. The black hole constellation was located in the middle of his brows, blocking the assimilation of the divine dragon essence blood to his neck. The black hole constellation was located in his dantian, blocking the assimilation of the divine dragon essence blood to his chest. However, after Yixing's other arm was assimilated by the dragon blood, it lost its connection with his body, and the assimilation speed greatly increased. In just half a day, Yixing's other arm had completely turned into a dragon, and it was covered in golden dragon scales. After both arms were assimilated, the power of the divine dragon blood essence started to spread in both directions. The black hole constellation located in the middle of his brows was clearly much stronger than the black hole constellation in the middle of his brows. The dragon scales grew at a much slower speed towards his face than towards his abdomen. This divine dragon blood essence was very intelligent. It actually knew how to avoid the sharp edge. It no longer assimilated towards Yixing's head. Instead, it concentrated its power on the lower part of Yixing's body. As such, although the black hole constellation in his dantian was constantly absorbing the divine dragon blood essence, the assimilation speed of the divine dragon blood essence was still not slow. 7 days later, Yixing's entire body was covered in dragon scales. Both his front and back were covered in dragon scales. Only the fist-sized part of his dantian remained intact because the black hole constellation was constantly absorbing the divine dragon blood essence. The dragon scales grew and surrounded his dantian, and they continued to spread downwards until they reached Yixing's legs. At this moment, his legs were completely separated from his body by the assimilated dragon scales. The assimilation speed was very fast, and 2 days later, both legs were completely covered in dragon scales. Following that, the remaining divine dragon blood essence attacked Yixing's dantian with all its might. Although it had assimilated Yixing's arms, legs, and almost his entire body, the divine dragon blood essence was still surging violently. The power of the dragon blood was too strong, and the black hole constellation could not refine and absorb it all. The range of its defense was constantly shrinking. Even if Yixing circulated the mystic low-grade meteor fall art with all his might, the black hole constellation in his dantian could not stop the assimilation of the divine dragon blood essence. 3 days later, Yixing's dantian was also completely assimilated, leaving only his head intact. However, the remaining power of the divine dragon blood essence was still strong. The rest of the divine dragon blood essence surged upwards, attacking Yixing's head with all its might. As long as it assimilated Yixing's glabella, Yixing would lose his consciousness. From then on, he would be a new existence, a dragon man. He might even completely transform into a dragon. Even with the black hole constellation's devouring vortex, it could not stop the assimilation of the divine dragon blood essence. Dragon scales began to spread towards Yixing's face. First, it was the chin, then the mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and then the back of his head, The black hole constellation was extraordinary and its resistance was too strong. The divine dragon blood essence took close to 10 days to assimilate Yixing's head, leaving only a small piece between his eyebrows. It had been 23 days since Yi Crossing came into contact with the divine dragon blood essence. After 23 days of devouring and absorbing, the black hole constellation had absorbed a large amount of divine dragon blood essence. Finally, just as his glabella was about to be assimilated by the divine dragon blood essence, it stopped the impact of the divine dragon blood essence. The speed at which Yixing refined and absorbed the divine dragon blood essence finally reached a balance with the assimilation speed of the divine dragon blood essence. No matter how much the divine dragon blood essence attacked Yixing's glabella, it was all devoured and absorbed by the black hole constellation. Although Yixing was operating the black hole constellation with all his might, he could still feel the changes in his body. At this moment he finally calmed down. As long as the speed reached a balance, as the black hole constellation absorbed more and more divine dragon blood essence, the advantage would tilt towards him sooner or later. The process of reaching a balance lasted for more than half a month. As more and more divine dragon blood essence was absorbed, Yixing finally took control of the situation and began to forcibly refine and absorb the divine dragon blood essence in the opposite direction of his dragonized body. With his glabella as the center, the dragon scales around him disappeared one by one, returning to their original state. This process was slow, but Yixing was in a good mood. He had finally overcome the hurdle. He was the winner of this battle of life and death. First, it was his head, then his neck, then his chest, shoulders, arms. As time passed, the dragon scales on Yixing's body gradually decreased. More and more parts of his body returned to their original state. Chapter 610. Star Continent, Starry Sky Arena. It had been 3 months since the young geniuses had entered the extraterritorial Star Continent. The extraterritorial Star Continent would open for 3 months. Today was the day that Wei Qingxian, Xianxia, and the other young geniuses would leave the extraterritorial Star Continent. The Star Continent was very far away from the Starry Sky Arena, so it wasn't easy to teleport. Therefore, the forces that had sent their disciples to the extraterritorial Star Continent had basically waited for 3 months in the Starry Sky Arena. As for the cultivators of the other forces, they had naturally brought their disciples back to the Star Continent. The forces that remained in the Starry Sky Arena were the damning royal family, the Zhou family, the Duan family, the Ye family, the Great Shi Empire, the Ancient Nether Empire, the Blood Edge Empire, and so on. At noon, a void array gate appeared in the sky above the Starry Sky Arena. It was time for the young geniuses of the extraterritorial Star Continent to return. Soon, the first figure appeared. Mo Jian's eyes lit up. It was the Blood Edge Empire's junior, Wei Qingxian. After 3 months, Wei Qingxuan's cultivation had improved again. She was already a half-step supremacy. Then, the second figure appeared. It was Yi Xianxia from the Ancient Nether Empire. Yi Xianxia had also gained something in the extraterritorial Star Continent and had reached the 9th stage of the astral realm. The third person to appear was Yi Rulong. Yi Rulong had also improved and was now a half-step supremacy. The fourth person to appear was Meng Xinlan, followed by Yi Weinan, Zhou Haoge, and Duan Xueqing. The 4 of them were still the same as when they entered the extraterritorial Star Continent. However, the lack of progress in their cultivation didn't mean that they didn't gain anything in the extraterritorial Star Continent. After Duan Xueqing appeared, no one else appeared. The damning royal family's cultivators were shocked. Crown Prince Meng Yuanxing asked, "Xinlan, where is Haokong?" There were a total of 8 young geniuses from the Star Continent who had entered the extraterritorial Star Continent. Now, only 7 of them had returned. Meng Haokong of the damning royal family was missing. Meng Xinlan glanced at Meng Yuanxing and said, "Haokong, he is dead." "Who?" Meng Yuanxing suddenly burst out with a terrifying aura, looking furious. The other martial artists of the great Meng royal family also frowned. As for the martial artists of the other forces, they all revealed looks of surprise. 8 people had gone in, and 1 of them had died. Unfortunately, it was a martial artist from the great Meng imperial family. This caused all the martial artists to think back to the struggle for destiny 3 months ago. Meng Yuanjin's combat strength was heaven-defying, and he was a monstrous genius of his generation. But he had died at the hands of Yi Xing, allowing Yi Xing to obtain the destiny of a 100-foot star and become the #1 ranker on the destiny decree. At that time, it had already shown that the Great Yuan dynasty's providence had begun to decline. Now that Meng Haokong was dead, it seemed to be related to the Great Yuan dynasty's providence. This was an ominous sign. It was no wonder that Meng Yuanxing and the great Meng imperial family's martialists were so angry. The void formation door in the sky only existed for a while before it disappeared. Wei Qingxian and the other 6 people descended from the sky and returned to their respective camps. Mo Jian. Meng Yuanxing walked over to Mo Jian. What instructions does Sacred Monarch Yuan have for me? Mo Jian lowered his head slightly and asked respectfully. Because Yi Xing had been accepted as a student of the Blood Edge Academy by Mo Jian, and Yi Xing was the #1 enemy of the Great Yuan dynasty, the Great Yuan dynasty was extremely angry with Mo Jian and the entire Blood Edge Empire. Meng Yuanxing was no exception. However, Meng Yuanxing suppressed his anger and pointed at Wei Qingxian. Her aptitude is very good, and the Great Yuan dynasty will do its best to nurture her. She doesn't have to follow you back to the East Divine Continent. She will follow me to the Great Yuan dynasty. Wei Qingxian was someone that the supreme monarch of the Great Meng Empire, Meng Tai, had instructed him to bring her to the Great Yuan dynasty. Meng Yuanxing naturally kept this in mind. Mo Jian said, Sacred Monarch Yuan, I have no right to make decisions for Zixuan's future. I will ask her if she is willing to go to the Great Yuan dynasty. Seeing Mo Jian looking at her, Wei Qingxian waved her hand and said, Dean, you don't have to ask. I am willing to follow you back to the East Divine Continent. Meng Yuanxing's face turned cold. This is the decree of the Supreme Monarch. The decree of the Supreme Monarch was the highest authority of the Great Yuan dynasty. Once the decree was issued, no one would dare to disobey it. Anyone who disobeyed would be the enemy of the Great Yuan dynasty. All the martial artists in the Starry Sky Great Arena looked over. Wei Qingxian looked indifferent and said, I will go wherever I want to go. No one's decree is of any use. Dean, I will go back first. Yi Xing would only come out in 3 months, and Wei Qingxian already felt that her breakthrough to the astral-reaching realm was just around the corner. She had to find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. She knew that once she became a venerable, her memories would definitely awaken and she might be in a coma for a long time. After Wei Qingxian finished speaking, she walked towards the teleportation array. Meng Yuanxing's figure flashed and blocked Wei Qingshuan's path. He shouted, You dare to disobey the decree? Do you know the consequences? Wei Qingxian looked at Meng Yuanxing and said, You dare to make a move in the Starry Sky Great Arena? But what are the consequences? Meng Yuanxing's eyes widened and he shouted, You! But he was speechless. Wei Qingxian walked past Meng Yuanxing. Although she hadn't fully awakened her memories, she knew that she was an extraordinary existence in her previous life. The Great Yuan dynasty and the monarch realm might be huge and lofty existences to the martial artists of the Starry Sky Great Continent, but to Wei Qingxian, they were nothing. Meng Yuanxing's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he looked at Mo Jian and said, What a good Blood Edge Empire. Mo Jian, I don't think there's any need for the Blood Edge Empire to exist. Reverend Mo Jian's eyes twitched. Although he knew that there would be a day when the Bloody Edge Empire and the Great Yuan dynasty would become enemies, he still felt a lot of pressure when the day really came. After all, the Great Yuan dynasty was the ruler of the Starry Sky Great Continent. Even if it wasn't very lucky, it wasn't a power that could be provoked. Furthermore, the current monarch of the Great Yuan dynasty was a 4-star monarch who was in the prime of his life. It could be said that the Great Yuan dynasty was at its peak. If the Great Yuan dynasty sent its troops, which empire would be able to resist it? However, Mo Jian felt more at ease when he thought of the Dark Star sect behind him. The Blood Edge Empire was located in the East Divine Continent, and the East Divine Continent was the headquarters of the Dark Star sect. The Great Yuan dynasty couldn't do anything about it. If the Blood Edge Empire became enemies with the Dark Star sect, it would be a dead end. With the protection of the Dark Star sect, the Great Yuan dynasty might not make a big fuss and come to the East Divine Continent to fight the Dark Star sect. Mo Jian's bowed body suddenly straightened, and he no longer had a respectful expression as he said, "The Blood Edge Empire respectfully greets you." After saying that, Mo Jian waved his hand at the marshalists of the Blood Edge Empire and said, "Let's go." If Yi Xing was still alive, he would only come out after 3 months. The Blood Edge Empire couldn't wait here in public. Furthermore, it was impossible for the Great Yuan dynasty to keep Yi Xing in the Starry Sky Great Arena. As long as Yi Xing was alive, he would definitely return to the East Divine Continent. Chapter 611. By the time Yi Xing's dragon scales had completely disappeared, it had already been 3 months since he came in contact with the divine dragon essence blood. These 3 months were divided into 3 periods. The first period was when the mystical dragon blood essence assimilated Yi Xing, causing his body to gradually turn into a dragon. The second period was when Yi Xing was in a stalemate, protecting his glabella from being destroyed. The third period was when Yi Xing counterattacked, allowing his body to gradually return to normal. All the dragon scales had completely disappeared, which meant that Yi Xing had completely refined and absorbed the divine dragon essence blood. Yi Xing's physique had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. The divine dragon essence blood contained a surging power under Yi Xing's control. Yi Xing felt that if this power erupted, it would be enough to easily kill a low-level venerable. Even Linghu Feiyang, who was a 3-star venerable, would be no exception. Rumble. Just as Yi Xing was astonished by the surging power in his body, a thunderous sound suddenly came from above his head. Yi Xing raised his head and saw a huge black tribulation cloud appear in the sky. Inside this black tribulation cloud were streaks of lightning and thunder, containing a terrifying supreme power. Yi Xing's expression changed. At this moment, he was no longer in the palace, but in another space. There were no walls around him, and it was very spacious. "This is the descent of the heavenly tribulation, and I've been transferred to a dimensional space. This is my venerable thunder tribulation." Yi Xing's heart was moved, and his face revealed an excited expression. When he entered the outer region Starland, he was only an 8-star venerable. Because he had absorbed the spirit spring, he had broken through to the 9th level of astral reaching realm and consolidated his cultivation to the half-step venerable realm. Now, only 4 months had passed, and his cultivation was about to make another breakthrough. Moreover, it was to break through a major realm, becoming an astral reaching venerable. To break through to the astral reaching realm from the astral star realm, one had to go through the baptism of the thunder tribulation. As long as one's cultivation reached the astral reaching realm, no matter where one would be sensed by the heavens, enter a dimensional space, and endure the thunder tribulation. The black tribulation cloud in the sky was several acres in size, and it contained the terrifying power of lightning. Moreover, as time passed, the power of lightning inside became stronger and stronger. The lightning became brighter and brighter, and the sound of thunder became louder and louder. Yi Xing's expression turned solemn. He calmed his mind and focused on the thunder calamity. Although the majority of astral reaching realm warriors could safely pass through the thunder calamity, there were still cases of warriors falling during the calamity. When a martial artist cultivated, as their cultivation increased, their lifespan would also continue to increase, which would change the fate of the heavens and lead to the calamity of the heavens. This thunder calamity was an unavoidable hurdle for every astral reaching realm martial artist. After passing the lightning tribulation, one would become a true venerable one. Their lifespan would be extended, their strength would increase greatly, and they would be able to continue on the path of martial arts. If one failed to pass the lightning tribulation, their cultivation would regress and their strength would be greatly reduced. In the worst-case scenario, they would die and their Tao would vanish, turning into ashes and becoming a failure on the path of martial arts. Yi Xing's strength was formidable. When he was only a half-step venerable, he had already surpassed ordinary venerables. Now that his body had absorbed the divine dragon essence blood, his strength had increased greatly. He was completely confident in passing through the astral-reaching realm Thunder Calamity. Therefore, facing the frightening might of the Thunder Calamity, Yi Xing was not afraid. Instead, he felt a sense of excitement and excitement. Martial arts cultivation was a struggle against the heavens. The descent of the Thunder Calamity was the calamity of the heavens. How could it not be a contest between a martial artist and the heavens? One had to fight against the heavens and win. Only then would one be able to fight for lifespan, allowing one to live longer and walk further on the path of martial arts. Yi Xing was looking forward to such a contest. No one could stop his path of martial arts, not even the heavens. Rumble! With an explosion, a light flashed in the black tribulation cloud, and a lightning bolt instantly struck down, striking towards Yi Xing. Come! Yi Xing lightly shouted. The astral energy within his body circulated, and he reached out to grab the lightning bolt. This was a thunder calamity. The power it contained was enough to split a mountain, but Yi Xing was not afraid at all. He was very confident in his body. When the thunder calamity landed on Yi Xing's hand, a piercing pain came from his palm. Then, the pain spread from his palm to his arm, and then to his entire body. The lightning bolt struck Yi Xing's body like a sharp needle. If the thunder calamity was allowed to run amok, Yi Xing's body would definitely be damaged, and he would be seriously injured. However, the pain in Yi Xing's body only lasted for about a breath's time before it disappeared. The lightning in his body was suppressed by his astral energy, refined and absorbed, and tempered his body. Yi Xing's dark astral innate spirit had been cultivated to the limit. His body was already very strong, and he had the strength of a half-step honorable. Then, after being strengthened by the divine dragon blood, he was no weaker than an ordinary honorable. Naturally, he could withstand the tempering of the thunder calamity. After being tempered by the thunder calamity, Yi Xing could feel that his flesh and blood were more vigorous, and his astral energy was purer. The power it contained had increased. Rumble! Soon, a second explosion sounded. A thunder calamity that was twice as thick as the previous one struck down. The thickness of the thunder calamity doubled, but its power was not only doubled, it was multiplied by several times. Yi Xing did not dare to touch the second thunder calamity directly with his body. He suddenly circulated the power of fire, and performed the sky-burning sun fist, and punched out. The thunder calamity was like a hot knife through butter, shattering the fist aura and landing on Yi Xing's fist. In an instant, it spread throughout Yi Xing's body. After being blocked by the fist aura, the power of the thunder calamity was greatly reduced. It was similar to the first thunder calamity, and Yi Xing's body could withstand it. He once again used the power of thunder to temper his body and astral energy. Rumble! After a few breaths, the third thunder calamity struck down. It was twice as thick as the second one, and its power had doubled. Yi Xing took out the golden rock mystic spear. Fire Yuan Qi gathered, and he thrust out a flame spear aura to meet the thunder calamity. The flame spear aura was shattered by the thunder calamity, greatly reducing the power of the thunder calamity. Yi Xing's body was once again tempered by the power of thunder. Rumble! The fourth explosion was so loud that Yi Xing felt his scalp go numb. It was clear that the power of this thunder calamity had reached an extremely frightening level. The thunder calamity of the astral-reaching realm only had 4 layers. The 4th layer was the final test, and its power was the most frightening. Many warriors had died under this thunder calamity. Yi Xing operated the fire star form, and the fire aura was operated at full power. A large amount of fire Yuan Qi was attracted by him, gathering around his body and turning into a flame giant. Yi Xing's power erupted completely, and he thrust out his spear against the 4th thunder calamity. Rumble! The explosion was deafening, and the flame spear aura was scattered. The golden rock mystic spear in Yi Xing's hand shook, and a frightening power was transmitted. The 4th thunder calamity had already landed on Yi Xing's body. The power of this thunder calamity was too great. In an instant, Yi Xing's body was smoldering, and he felt a sharp pain. The lightning in the thunder calamity was like a blade, rampaging inside Yi Xing's body. Fortunately, Yi Xing's body was extraordinary, and he was able to suppress the power of this thunder calamity. Rumble. At this moment, the fifth explosion was heard in the sky. Yi Xing's hair stood on end as he felt the danger. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.